Beneath the sands of time, hidden in the shadows of forgotten history, lies a truth that has baffled us for millennia. What if the rise of ancient civilizations was not simply the story of human ingenuity, but a reflection of something far greater, something beyond our understanding? How did the Egyptians, with their perfect precision, align their pyramids to the stars? What guided the builders of Machu Picchu to construct their city high in the Andean clouds using stonework so precise it defies modern engineering? And in the deserts of Mesopotamia, what inspired the Sumerians to create the world's first written language, carving symbols into clay that still speak to us today? From the towering ziggurats of Babylon to the mysterious carvings on Easter Island, each civilization leaves behind whispers of knowledge. Knowledge that seems too advanced for its time. Were these societies truly just reflections of their age, or did they hold secrets that we have yet to fully uncover? Join us as we journey back through the annals of history into the heart of these ancient cultures. Let's explore the enigmas, the marvels, and the mysteries that have shaped our world. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. High in the Andean plateau, where the thin air brushes against the edges of history, lies the ancient city of Tiwanaku, a place where the weight of the past presses down like the heavy stone blocks scattered across the landscape. Situated at an altitude of over 12,000 feet near the shores of Lake Titicaca, this site has long been a source of fascination and mystery. To stand before the monumental ruins of Tiwanaku is to feel as though time itself has folded in on itself, revealing secrets not easily unlocked. The heart of Tiwanaku is marked by its towering, weathered stone structures, blocks so large and precisely cut that modern archaeologists struggle to explain how they were moved, much less carved with the precision they exhibit. These stones are not just any rocks. Some weigh several tons. Others stretch the limits of what is imaginable for a civilization with no known advanced tools. Yet the stones fit together so tightly that a sheet of paper cannot be slipped between them. This feat of craftsmanship is even more perplexing when you consider that Tiwanaku flourished between 500 and 1000 A.D., a time when other societies in the region were still using rudimentary methods of construction. Perhaps the most iconic feature of Tiwanaku is the Puerta del Sol, the Gate of the Sun. This massive stone gateway, carved from a single slab of rock, measures almost 10 feet tall and is adorned with intricate carvings. In the center, an enigmatic figure gazes out from the stone, his identity and meaning still the subject of much debate. Some scholars suggest he is the figure of Viracocha, a god worshipped by the Andean people, while others believe he could represent a more abstract concept of cosmic order, or even an extraterrestrial being. It is not just the figure itself that raises questions, but the way the gate is positioned. It aligns with the sun's movement during the solstices, suggesting that the builders possessed a deep understanding of astronomy, an understanding that is still not fully grasped. Nearby, the semi-subterranean temple lies buried in layers of soil, its walls covered in carvings of chacanas, or Andean crosses. These images, seen throughout the region, represent a concept of balance between the realms of the living, the dead, and the gods, a concept that was central to Tiwanaku's worldview. What purpose did this temple serve? Was it a place of worship, of cosmic observance, or something more? And why did the civilization appear to have disappeared so abruptly, leaving behind only fragments of a once great society? The mysteries of Tiwanaku don't end with its architecture or religious symbolism. The city's sudden decline around the year 1000 AD has long puzzled historians and archaeologists. Unlike many ancient civilizations, Tiwanaku does not seem to have left a clear legacy. No written records, no extensive burial sites, no tangible cultural heirs. The Andean people, including the Inca, who came much later, held Tiwanaku in reverence. But they did not inherit its architectural or technological prowess. The city seems to have vanished, leaving behind a silent reminder of its once formidable presence. One theory suggests that environmental changes played a significant role in the collapse of Tiwanaku. As climate shifts altered the region's agricultural output, the city may have faced crop failures and resource depletion, causing social upheaval and eventual abandonment. Others propose that the site's location, so high in the mountains, vulnerable to shifts in weather patterns, may have made it increasingly difficult to sustain a thriving population. In this view, Tiwanaku's disappearance could simply be a result of its people being forced to move to more hospitable regions. Yet, not everyone agrees with the idea of environmental collapse. Some believe the fall of Tiwanaku was far more abrupt and far more mysterious. Was it possible that the civilization faced a catastrophic event, an invasion, or even a natural disaster of such magnitude that it erased the city from history almost overnight? Some fringe theories speculate that Tiwanaku's inhabitants possessed knowledge and technologies far more advanced than their contemporaries, perhaps even harnessing energy sources or creating constructs beyond what we can comprehend. Could the city's downfall have been the result of overreaching? Or perhaps they simply vanished, as if the very fabric of reality were torn away. This line of thinking brings us to another mystery of Tiwanaku, the strange, almost otherworldly precision of its construction. Some suggest that the builders of Tiwanaku were not just skilled engineers, but perhaps guided by something or someone beyond the realm of known history. The alignment of the city with celestial bodies, the perfectly cut stones, and the seemingly inexplicable advanced knowledge of geometry and astronomy have all contributed to the idea that Tiwanaku's creators may not have been of ordinary human origin. In the 19th century, when explorers first discovered Tiwanaku, the idea of extraterrestrial influence was more popular. Ancient astronaut theorists proposed that advanced beings from other worlds could have assisted in the construction of the city, leaving behind clues in the form of carved stone figures and strange geometric patterns. While these theories have been largely dismissed by mainstream scholars, they continue to captivate imaginations, partly because Tiwanaku remains one of the most enigmatic civilizations in the Americas. Despite the many theories, one thing remains clear. We are still left with questions. The city of Tiwanaku, with its mysterious architecture, its abrupt collapse, and its enduring legacy in the hearts of indigenous Andean peoples, refuses to yield all of its secrets. Some believe that the answers lie in the stones themselves, waiting to be uncovered by future generations of archaeologists. Others believe that Tiwanaku's mysteries are bound to the very fabric of human history, that they are fragments of a past so distant we may never fully grasp their meaning. For now, the ruins of Tiwanaku stand as an enduring testament to a civilization that was, and yet still is, elusive in the face of modern understanding. Its story, its true story, remains hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to finally see it. The question is, are we prepared to understand it? Or will Tiwanaku remain, as it always has, a riddle wrapped in stone and silence? As we leave the high-altitude ruins of Tiwanaku behind, we travel across time and space, arriving in the arid plains of southeastern Turkey, a place where the earth has, for millennia, kept a secret so profound. It has reshaped our understanding of early human civilization. Here, nestled in the rolling hills of the Anatolian Plateau, lies Göbekli Tepe, an archaeological site that challenges everything we thought we knew about the dawn of human society. Carved from the very bedrock beneath it, Göbekli Tepe isn't just ancient. It is prehistory itself, older than the pyramids of Egypt, older than Stonehenge, and, perhaps most startling of all, older than the advent of agriculture. The site was first unearthed in the 1990s, and what began as an unremarkable hilltop turned into one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Beneath the surface, researchers found the remnants of what can only be described as a vast ceremonial complex. Large stone pillars, some standing over 16 feet tall, are arranged in concentric circles, their surfaces adorned with intricate carvings of animals, lions, boars, snakes, birds. The level of craftsmanship, the scale of the construction, and the sheer mystery of its purpose leave us with more questions than answers. Göbekli Tepe is unlike any other site from its time. It predates the development of agriculture, a fundamental shift in human history that is often considered the birth of civilization itself. Yet, here we have evidence of a society capable of creating monumental architecture, shaping massive stone pillars, and organizing large-scale construction projects. This raises an unsettling question. How could hunter-gatherers, people with no permanent settlements, no surplus food, and no written language, possibly have the means or the motivation to build such a complex? Mainstream archaeology suggests that Göbekli Tepe was a religious or ceremonial site. Perhaps it was a place where early humans gathered to perform rituals, or where they sought to make contact with the divine. Some researchers even speculate that the site could have been a kind of temple to a forgotten pantheon of gods, an ancient shrine at the heart of a spiritual worldview that connected humans to the cosmos. The level of detail on the carvings, the almost obsessive depiction of animals, also suggests a deep symbolic significance. Was it possible that these carvings represented totemic deities, or were they a form of early storytelling capturing mythologies long since lost to time? The scale and organization of Göbekli Tepe's construction, however, suggests something far more complex. How could a society without writing or advanced tools undertake a project of such magnitude? The stone pillars, for example, weigh up to 10 tons each. How were they quarried, shaped, and transported to the site? The precision of the carving, too, challenges the idea that these were primitive builders with rudimentary tools. The craftsmanship on display hints at knowledge and skill far beyond what we typically associate with hunter-gatherer groups. Could it be that the builders of Göbekli Tepe had access to techniques that have been lost to history? Or were they somehow guided by knowledge we are only just beginning to rediscover? As we delve further into the mysteries of Göbekli Tepe, we must ask, if this site is older than the agricultural revolution, what does that tell us about the nature of early human society? If humans were capable of constructing such monumental structures before settling into agricultural life, what other lost capabilities might they have had? Some fringe theories offer even more speculative answers. A popular but controversial idea suggests that Göbekli Tepe might have been constructed by an advanced pre-agricultural civilization, one that existed thousands of years before what we now consider the beginning of recorded history. Could the builders of Göbekli Tepe have been the inheritors of knowledge passed down from an even older civilization, perhaps one that had mastered technologies we cannot even begin to imagine? Others suggest the possibility of an extraterrestrial influence, citing the precision of the stonework and the intricacy of the carvings as evidence of a higher intelligence. While this theory is not widely accepted among mainstream archaeologists, it speaks to the awe that Göbekli Tepe inspires, an awe that has led some to look beyond the conventional explanations for what it might represent. Then, there's the question of why the site was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE, an event that remains as enigmatic as the site itself. After all, Göbekli Tepe seems to have served a clear purpose, and its creators went to great lengths to build it. So why, when it was so carefully constructed, would its builders then choose to bury it? Was the site abandoned for a specific reason? Or did the people who constructed it intentionally conceal their work, leaving the monumental structures hidden beneath layers of earth? Could there have been a cultural or religious reason for its burial? A symbolic gesture, perhaps, of returning the sacred space to the earth, or a way of preserving it for future generations? Yet, some believe that the burial might point to a more cataclysmic event. Perhaps the collapse of the society that built Göbekli Tepe, whether due to war, famine, or environmental catastrophe, led the survivors to bury the site, not as an act of reverence, but as an attempt to erase it from memory. If so, what did they fear about their own creation? What was it about Göbekli Tepe that made it so important, so significant, that it warranted such an extraordinary act of concealment? The more we learn about Göbekli Tepe, the more we realize how little we actually know. The site continues to challenge our understanding of the past, raising as many questions as it answers. Were the builders of Göbekli Tepe simple hunter-gatherers, or were they members of a lost civilization with far more sophisticated knowledge than we give them credit for? Was it a center of religious ritual or something more? And perhaps, most intriguingly of all, what else might be hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered? As we stand on the threshold of this ancient mystery, one thing is clear: Göbekli Tepe is not just a relic of the past. It is a reminder that there is still much to discover about our own origins, about the lost civilizations that shaped our world, and about the depths of human potential that have yet to be fully realized. The mystery of Göbekli Tepe, like so many others, remains unsolved. And the more we learn, the more we are forced to confront the possibility that the answers we seek may be far stranger than we ever imagined. As we leave the highlands of Anatolia and the dust of ancient stone, we turn our attention to the warm, arid lands of the Arabian Peninsula, a place where civilization flourished long before the great empires of the Mediterranean. Here, in the vast desert expanses of what is now modern-day Yemen, the kingdom of Himyar once thrived, a civilization so enigmatic, its secrets remain buried beneath the sands of time. The kingdom of Himyar, which existed from around the 1st century BCE to the 6th century CE, was a powerhouse in the ancient world, strategically positioned on the trade routes that connected the Roman Empire to India and beyond. Its capital, the city of Zafar, was an oasis of culture and wealth, adorned with magnificent architecture and surrounded by fertile land fed by the ancient irrigation systems of the region. But for all its grandeur, Himyar's story is wrapped in mystery. Its origins, its rise to power, and its sudden disappearance all leave more questions than answers. One of the most striking features of Himyarite culture was its impressive art and architecture. In the heart of the kingdom, carved into the stone hills, are remnants of grand palaces, temples, and towering obelisks, all etched with symbols and inscriptions that reflect the kingdom's rich history. The Himyarites spoke an ancient South Arabian language, and their written script, known as Musnad, is one of the oldest in the region. Yet, despite the impressive achievements of the kingdom, the lack of a cohesive historical record leaves us with only fragments of understanding. Among the most fascinating artifacts found in Himyarite ruins are the inscriptions that speak of kings and deities, of trade and warfare, and of a civilization deeply connected to the surrounding Arabian and African regions. The Himyarites were known for their incense trade, which was highly prized by the Romans and other ancient cultures. The region's incense, frankincense, and myrrh became synonymous with wealth, luxury, and religious ritual. It is said that the Himyarites controlled the incense trade for centuries, acting as middlemen between the East and West, controlling the flow of these sacred substances across the Red Sea. However, as we delve deeper into the mysteries of Himyar, the story becomes less clear. The kingdom's true nature remains shrouded in the mists of time, with historians and archaeologists still unable to agree on key aspects of its culture. One of the most debated aspects is the Himyarites' religious practices. The kingdom was initially polytheistic, with a pantheon of gods that seemed to reflect the complex relationship between the Himyarites and the surrounding cultures. The gods they worshipped were linked to natural forces, gods of the sun, moon, and earth, as well as gods of fertility and agriculture. But as the centuries passed, the kingdom of Himyar underwent a profound transformation. Around the 4th century CE, a dramatic shift occurred. Christianity began to spread through the Arabian Peninsula, and the Himyarites began to adopt the new faith. The process was not as simple as it might seem. It was fraught with tension, and there are conflicting accounts of whether the conversion was peaceful or the result of violent conquest. Some sources suggest that the Himyarites embraced Christianity in a way that reflected their own unique interpretation of the faith, blending it with their traditional beliefs. Others claim that the conversion was a political move, an attempt to align themselves with the powerful Christian empires of the Byzantine and Ethiopian kingdoms. In fact, the relationship between the Himyarites and the neighboring Christian kingdoms of Ethiopia is another intriguing aspect of their history. For a time, the Himyarite kingdom was under the control of a series of rulers who were said to have been influenced by Ethiopia's Christian monarchy. Some even suggest that the Himyarite rulers were puppets of the Ethiopian Christian emperor, making the entire Himyarite kingdom a battleground between competing religious and political ideologies. But it is the fall of the Himyarite kingdom that remains one of its greatest mysteries. By the 6th century, Himyar, which had once been a prosperous and powerful kingdom, was all but erased from history. The last known Himyarite ruler, King Yusuf Azar, was defeated by an invading force of Ethiopian Christians, marking the end of the kingdom's reign. The suddenness of the collapse and the lack of clear historical records raises several questions. Was the downfall of Himyar simply the result of military defeat? Or was it part of a larger shift in regional power dynamics? Did internal conflict or religious strife play a role in the kingdom's collapse? What makes the fall of Himyar even more perplexing is the fact that, in many ways, the kingdom seemed to disappear from the historical record almost overnight. After the fall of the Himyarites, the region was absorbed into the larger Arab empires, and the traces of Himyarite culture and influence faded into obscurity. Despite the impressive archaeological finds in the region, very little is known about the final years of Himyar. Were the people of Himyar assimilated into the surrounding cultures, or did they simply vanish? Moreover, there are persistent rumors and fringe theories suggesting that the Himyarites were not simply a group of ancient Semitic people, but that they were part of a broader, now lost civilization, a people whose influence stretched far beyond the Arabian Peninsula. Some claim that the Himyarites were an offshoot of an even older civilization that had been destroyed by a cataclysmic event, leaving behind only traces of their existence in the form of inscriptions, ruins, and legends. Others point to the architectural style and material culture of the Himyarites, which bears similarities to those found in the ancient civilizations of the Nile Valley and the Horn of Africa. Were the Himyarites an isolated culture, or were they part of a much larger, interconnected network of ancient civilizations, each influencing the others in ways we have yet to fully understand? Some even speculate that the Himyarites, with their advanced irrigation techniques, monumental architecture, and strategic location on trade routes, may have been the inheritors of knowledge from a much older civilization, one whose technologies and cultural practices were lost long before the rise of known historical empires. Could the Himyarites have been part of a forgotten legacy that predated the great civilizations of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and India? As the sands of time continue to shift, the kingdom of Himyar remains one of the most enigmatic chapters of ancient history. Its rise, its power, and its sudden disappearance raise fundamental questions about the nature of ancient civilization itself. What drove the Himyarites to achieve such greatness? And what forces led to their ultimate downfall? Was their fate sealed by external invaders, or was there something more to the story, something that has yet to be uncovered? In the end, the kingdom of Himyar, like so many lost civilizations, is a mystery that invites us to look deeper, to question our assumptions, and to wonder what might still be hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. After the fall of the Himyarite kingdom, we journey further out into the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, to a remote and isolated speck of land known as Rapa Nui, better known to the world as Easter Island. Located nearly 2,200 miles off the coast of Chile, this small island has become synonymous with mystery, its name evoking images of towering stone figures, the Moai, that rise out of the earth like silent sentinels. These massive statues, with their stoic faces and enigmatic expressions, have captured the imagination of explorers, archaeologists, and theorists alike. But the true story of Rapa Nui, its people, its culture, and its ultimate collapse, remains one of the most intriguing puzzles in the history of human civilization. When you stand on Easter Island's windswept shores, the feeling of isolation is immediate and palpable. The island, only about 63 square miles in size, is surrounded by the boundless expanse of the Pacific Ocean. There are no other land masses for thousands of miles in any direction. The landscape itself is stark and volcanic, with our sharp craters and jagged cliffs that fall dramatically into the ocean below. In many ways, the island feels as though it has existed in a world of its own, a world untouched by the outside, cut off from the rest of humanity for much of its history. It is here, in this remote corner of the world, that a civilization once thrived, its people carving and raising nearly 900 Moai statues, some of which stand over 30 feet tall and weigh up to 80 tons. These colossal figures, each with a distinct, elongated face, were carefully placed along the island's coastlines, gazing inward toward the settlements of the island's inhabitants. The sheer scale of the Moai and the effort required to carve, transport, and erect them raises immediate questions. How did a people so isolated manage to accomplish such monumental feats? And why, for all their remarkable achievements, did their civilization ultimately collapse? The accepted narrative is that the Rapa Nui people arrived on the island sometime between the 8th and 12th centuries, though some theories suggest an even earlier settlement. They developed a complex society that flourished for centuries, mastering agricultural techniques, constructing intricate stone platforms, known as Ahu, and, of course, creating the Moai. The statues are believed to represent ancestral deities or chiefs, figures of great spiritual significance. The Moai were erected on the Ahu platforms as a means of honoring these figures, with the belief that the spirits of the ancestors would watch over and protect the living. What is remarkable about the Moai is not just their size and scale, but the craftsmanship involved. The stone used to carve the statues, primarily volcanic tuff, was soft enough to work with tools made of basalt. Yet the figures' facial features are remarkably refined. They convey an expression of power, serenity, and even mystery. But the purpose behind their construction remains unclear. Were the Moai symbols of religious devotion, political power, or both? And why were so many of them placed along the coast, looking inward toward the settlements rather than outward to the sea? For much of the 20th century, historians and archaeologists believed that the Moai were erected by successive generations of Rapa Nui people, each group adding their own to the collection as a means of honoring their ancestors. But as research on Easter Island progressed, a different story began to emerge, one that raised more questions than answers. The first clue that something went terribly wrong came in the form of the island's ecological collapse. When the first Europeans arrived on Easter Island in the 18th century, they found a society that had already been drastically altered. The towering Moai still stood, but the island was largely deforested, its once rich ecosystem in ruins. Archaeologists later uncovered evidence of widespread soil erosion and agricultural decline, suggesting that the Rapa Nui people may have overexploited their resources. How could a society that had built such impressive statues have failed to protect their environment? Theories abound, but the most widely accepted explanation is that the Rapa Nui people's need for timber to transport and raise the Moai led to the deforestation of the island. With no trees left to create canoes, the islanders were cut off from their maritime resources, and the fertile soil was eroded by wind and rain. As food became scarce, the island's social structure began to unravel, leading to internal conflict and a collapse in both population and culture. But even as these ecological and social explanations make sense, there remains a lingering mystery. Why did the Rapa Nui people continue to build the Moai long after their society began to falter? Why did they continue to carve and erect statues when their very survival seemed to be at stake? Some theorists suggest that the Moai were central to the society's spiritual and political systems. The act of constructing the Moai may have been a way for the islanders to hold on to their cultural identity and their connection to the past, even as their world was falling apart. Others have proposed that the statues had a deeper, more mystical significance, one that transcended the practicalities of survival. Perhaps the Moai were more than just representations of chiefs and ancestors. Some believe they were part of a complex system of energy or spiritual power, channeling forces that could protect the people or influence the gods. Could the Moai have been seen as conduits for divine protection or a means of manipulating the environment to ensure prosperity? In the 20th century, the discovery of a particular type of Moai, those that were left unfinished, added even more complexity to the story. These figures, often incomplete and left abandoned in the quarry, suggest that the island's once thriving artistic tradition had come to an abrupt halt. Could it be that the unfinished Moai symbolize the end of an era, a reflection of a society on the brink of collapse? Or were they the product of a struggle between competing factions, each seeking to control the Moai's spiritual power? As the centuries passed, the Moai were toppled, their faces buried in the earth, as the Rapa Nui people fought to preserve what was left of their culture. And yet, even in their fallen state, the statues remain, a silent testament to a once great civilization that now exists only in the fragments of its legacy. Despite centuries of study and research, the true purpose of the Moai and the reasons behind the downfall of Rapa Nui remain elusive. Was the collapse of this civilization purely the result of environmental degradation? Or was there something more at play? Did the Moai have a spiritual significance beyond what we can understand? And why, in the face of such hardship, did the Rapa Nui people continue to erect statues that seemed to carry the weight of a dying culture? Rapa Nui is a reminder that even in the most remote corners of the earth, civilizations have risen and fallen, leaving behind legacies that speak to both their greatness and their fragility. The Moai, standing in silence along the coast, continue to watch over the island, silent witnesses to a past that still holds mysteries waiting to be unraveled. As we gaze upon these ancient figures, the question remains, what do the Moai truly represent? And what, if anything, are we still missing from the story of Easter Island's rise and fall? As the last echoes of Rapa Nui fade into the distant horizon, we now turn our gaze to the rugged cliffs and valleys of southwestern Turkey, an area where the ancient world's mysteries continue to intrigue and confound us. Here, nestled among the mountain passes and along the coastline, lies the land of the Lycians, a civilization that flourished more than 2,000 years ago, yet whose legacy remains elusive, marked by an intriguing blend of profound cultural achievements and unresolved questions. The Lycians occupied a strategically significant region that stretches across the modern provinces of Antalya and Muğla, where the Mediterranean Sea kisses the rugged Turkish coastline. Today, the landscape of Lycia is dotted with dramatic cliffs, sweeping valleys, and hidden coves, a place where ancient tombs and ruins, carved into the very rock, seem to emerge from the land as though they were part of its natural formation. Among the most striking features of Lycian civilization are its monumental, rock-cut tombs. These tombs, many of which are found in the town of Myra, modern-day Demre, are carved directly into the cliffs, towering above the valley floor like ancient sentinels. The tombs, with their elaborate facades, resemble miniature temples, some with ornate columns, pediments, and intricate carvings, suggesting a culture that not only valued the afterlife, but also sought to honor the dead in ways that were both grand and spiritual. The most famous of these tombs, the Lycian rock tombs of Myra, are thought to belong to the region's elite, but the details of the society they served remain unclear. The Lycians were a people with a language and script all their own. Lycian, an ancient Anatolian language that remains only partially deciphered. Many of their inscriptions, often found on the rock tombs themselves, offer glimpses into their world. The names of kings, the titles of rulers, and occasionally phrases that hint at their religious beliefs and rituals. But despite the discovery of several bilingual inscriptions, Lycian and Greek, much of the language is still undeciphered, leaving many of their stories untold. What did the inscriptions say about their rulers, their gods, or their daily lives? And why, despite these fragments of understanding, does so much about the Lycians remain a mystery? The city of Xanthos, once the heart of Lycian civilization, is another focal point in our exploration. It was here that the Lycians left behind an astonishing array of inscriptions and monuments, some in the form of grand stelae, and others in the shape of larger-than-life statues. The Lycian tomb of Paiava and the Nereid monument, both discovered in the 19th century, stand as prime examples of Lycian artistry and craftsmanship. The Nereid monument, which was later moved to the British Museum, is one of the most detailed and spectacular monuments ever to come out of ancient Anatolia. Depicting gods, warriors, and mortals in intricate relief, it paints a vivid picture of a society that saw the divine as a powerful and integral force in everyday life. Yet, much like the rock tombs, these monuments raise more questions than they answer. Who were the Lycians, and how did they fit into the broader context of the ancient Mediterranean world? Some historians suggest they were part of a larger Anatolian culture, deeply connected with the Aegean civilizations to the west, while others argue they were a distinct entity with their own unique identity, one that maintained a strong sense of independence for much of its history. Indeed, the Lycians seem to have been fiercely proud of their autonomy. Unlike many of their neighbors, who were frequently absorbed into larger empires, the Lycians retained their independence for centuries, even managing to resist domination by the mighty Persian Empire for a time. The spirit of resistance is perhaps best exemplified in the siege of Xanthos in 546 BCE. As the Persian forces advanced, the Lycians, faced with certain defeat, chose to commit mass suicide rather than surrender. Their defiance has been immortalized in ancient accounts, but the motives behind such an extreme decision remain unclear. Was it simply an act of desperation, or did it speak to something deeper, a sense of cultural pride and an unwillingness to submit to foreign rule? And what did this choice mean for the Lycian people's worldview? Was death, in their eyes, a better alternative to being absorbed into the empire? As we delve into the Lycians' religious practices, another layer of mystery begins to unfold. Their pantheon of gods appears to have been a complex mixture of local deities and imported figures from the Aegean and Mesopotamian worlds. Inscriptions found in Xanthos and other Lycian cities reveal gods with names like Artemis, Apollo, and Heracles. Yet the Lycians also venerated a host of unique deities, including the enigmatic Leto, who may have been a god tied to both nature and the afterlife. Could the Lycians have had a religious tradition that integrated elements from several ancient cultures, creating a unique spiritual system that remains elusive to us today? One particularly curious aspect of Lycian religion is their treatment of the dead. The grand rock tombs that dot the region suggest that the Lycians placed great importance on burial rituals, with the elaborate structures designed to ensure the deceased's journey to the afterlife. Some of the tombs are designed to resemble miniature temples with columns and reliefs that depict the deceased's connection to the divine. Was this symbolic of a belief in the immortality of the soul, or was it a more practical reflection of the Lycians' desire to maintain a connection with their ancestors? Were the tombs meant to be repositories of power, ensuring that the spirits of the dead could continue to influence the living? These tombs, with their striking facades and hidden chambers, are not the only mysteries that the Lycians left behind. The Lycian cities themselves, many of which remain buried or in ruins, provide only fragments of understanding. What happened to their society after the fall of Xanthos? How did the Lycians respond to the changing tides of history as empires rose and fell around them? Even the Lycian language, which has been partially deciphered through inscriptions and bilingual texts, offers tantalizing glimpses into their world but remains an enigma in many ways. Was their language part of a larger, lost linguistic family? Or was it truly unique to the region? And why, despite their sophisticated script, do so many of their texts remain unreadable? Could it be that the key to unlocking more of Lycian history lies hidden in these ancient writings? As we survey the ruins of Lycia, its cities, its tombs, and its monuments, we are left to wonder, what more is there to discover about this intriguing civilization? The Lycians, though perhaps not as widely known as the Greeks or Romans, carved out a distinct and powerful identity in the ancient world. And while much of their story is lost to time, their legacy, etched in stone and inscribed on tablets, reminds us that even the most enigmatic of peoples can leave an indelible mark on history. The mystery of the Lycians, like so many others, remains unsolved. What other secrets might be hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered? And how much more of their story will we yet learn? As the ruins of Lycia continue to silently guard their secrets, the answers lie in the fragments, waiting, perhaps, to be pieced together in a way that will finally reveal the full scope of their extraordinary civilization. As the echoes of the Lycians fade into history, we now turn our attention to another ancient civilization, one that flourished in the heart of South Asia, a civilization so advanced and mysterious that its name, the Indus Valley Civilization, still stirs intrigue among scholars and historians. Stretching across the vast floodplains of the Indus River, this civilization spanned parts of present-day Pakistan, India, and Afghanistan, thriving between 3,300 BCE and 1,300 BCE. Yet, despite its remarkable achievements, the people of the Indus Valley remain largely unknown to us. Their cities, their script, their way of life, all are shrouded in enigma. Imagine standing in the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the civilization's largest and most significant cities. The site, now an archaeological treasure, rises out of the arid landscape like a ghostly reminder of a once thriving urban center. Here, the well-planned streets stretch in perfect grids, a testament to the civilization's advanced understanding of urban planning. The buildings, made of baked brick, stand in sharp contrast to the surrounding wilderness, and the remains of public baths, drainage systems, and granaries suggest a society that valued hygiene, organization, and order. In the streets, you can almost hear the echoes of a bustling trade center. Merchants, artisans, and laborers all going about their business, exchanging goods, ideas, and culture. Yet, for all the marvels uncovered in Mohenjo-Daro and its sister cities, something is absent, a clear understanding of who these people were. The Indus Valley Civilization has left us a wealth of material culture, but no decipherable written records. Unlike the Egyptians or Mesopotamians, who left behind elaborate inscriptions and epic stories of kings and gods, the Indus script remains an unsolved mystery. Hundreds of seals and tablets covered with symbols have been discovered, but no one has yet cracked the code. Who were these people, and what did they record on these seals? What was the nature of their society, and why did they leave no written history? The lack of deciphered text is just one of the many unanswered questions surrounding the Indus Valley Civilization. Another major mystery is the collapse of this advanced society. By around 1300 BCE, the once prosperous cities of the Indus Valley were abandoned, leaving behind only ruins and artifacts. What caused this sudden decline? Was it the result of natural disasters such as flooding or a major shift in the course of the Indus River? Or was there something more, an internal collapse, social upheaval, or invasion? The answers remain elusive. Some theories point to environmental factors as the primary cause. The region where the Indus Valley Civilization flourished was highly dependent on the regular flooding of the Indus River to sustain agriculture. There are signs that a gradual shift in the river's course, along with changing monsoon patterns, may have led to prolonged droughts and crop failures. As the fertile lands became less productive, it is possible that the people of the Indus Valley were forced to abandon their cities in search of more viable agricultural land. But the environmental hypothesis doesn't fully explain the suddenness of the collapse. After all, civilizations that were just as dependent on rivers, such as Mesopotamia and Egypt, weathered similar changes. Some archaeologists suggest that there may have been an internal decline, perhaps social unrest or the breakdown of central authority, that led to the city's abandonment. There is evidence of what some scholars interpret as signs of conflict in the final layers of the Indus settlements, but no large-scale destruction of the cities as would be expected in the aftermath of a violent invasion. For a long time, many historians believed that the Aryan migration, a theory proposing that Indo-European peoples moved into the region from the north around 1500 BCE, played a central role in the decline of the Indus Valley civilization. The idea was that the Aryans, with their more mobile, warlike society, may have overwhelmed the more settled and peaceful Indus people. However, recent evidence has cast doubt on this theory, showing that the decline of the Indus civilization likely occurred well before the Aryan migration began. It seems that whatever caused the collapse, it was not solely the result of foreign invaders. Yet another mystery lies in the religious practices of the Indus Valley civilization. There is much we don't know about their belief systems, but some of the artifacts left behind suggest a society deeply invested in spiritual and ritual life. Many seals depict animals, such as unicorns and various deities, leading some scholars to believe that the Indus people may have worshipped animals or nature spirits. Others suggest that the prevalence of symbols resembling the Hindu god Shiva, specifically a figure sitting in a meditative posture, might point to early forms of Hinduism or a precursor to the religion. But these connections remain speculative, as there is little concrete evidence to suggest any direct link between the Indus Valley religion and the practices of later Indian civilizations. What is clear, however, is the sophistication of their society. The urban planning of the Indus cities suggests a highly organized government, perhaps with a centralized system that oversaw everything from trade to sanitation. The well-developed drainage systems found in cities like Mohenjo-daro are among the most advanced in the ancient world, and it is believed that the people of the Indus Valley may have had access to water long before other civilizations developed similar technologies. The sheer scale and consistency of these features across multiple sites raise intriguing questions about the degree of centralization and coordination required to pull off such ambitious infrastructure projects. Were the cities of the Indus Valley part of a unified empire, or were they individual city-states, each with its own rulers and culture? The extent of trade is another clue. Artifacts from Mesopotamia, including seals and jewelry, have been found in the Indus Valley, suggesting that the people here were part of a broader trade network that spanned much of the ancient world. But how did they manage these interactions without leaving behind any written records? Did the Indus Valley civilization possess a form of communication that we have yet to understand? And what of their writing system? The seals found in Indus Valley cities are inscribed with hundreds of symbols, many of which are unique to the civilization. Some scholars have compared the script to other early writing systems, such as those found in Mesopotamia or Egypt, but no breakthrough has yet been made. Were these symbols part of an alphabet, a pictorial script, or something entirely different? The persistence of the symbols appearing in thousands of inscriptions across a vast geographical area, suggests that writing was integral to their culture. But why, despite extensive research, has it proven so difficult to unlock the meaning of their script? The disappearance of the Indus Valley civilization, like the collapse of the Lycians or the fall of Mohenjo-Daro, raises questions that transcend the specifics of any one culture. Was it environmental change, internal strife, or something more mysterious that led to their downfall? And if their civilization was so advanced, what other knowledge and technologies might have been lost to time? Even now, the secrets of the Indus Valley civilization remain just beyond our reach. As we sift through the ruins and examine the artifacts, the possibility lingers. Might we one day uncover the key to their language, their religion, or the cause of their disappearance? What, in the end, have we truly lost from this once great society? The answers are still buried, perhaps waiting for the next breakthrough, or perhaps forever hidden in the sands of time. As we shift from the enigmatic ruins of the Indus Valley, we find ourselves in the arid deserts of the American Southwest, where another ancient civilization once flourished, the ancestral Puebloans, also known as the Anasazi. In the vast, rugged landscapes of present-day Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah, these people built monumental structures and carved their existence into the very landscape. Yet, despite the awe-inspiring remnants of their cities, the mysteries of who they were and why they disappeared remain largely unsolved. Imagine standing at the base of the Cliff Palace, a sprawling cliffside, dwelling perched high above the canyon floor in Mesa Verde National Park. Here, the ancestral Puebloans constructed a complex network of stone dwellings in the cliffs, some of which are still remarkably well preserved. The site of these cliff dwellings, multiple stories of carefully crafted stone rooms interconnected by ladders and steep stairways, evokes a sense of awe. The craftsmanship and ingenuity of these structures are extraordinary, with walls built to withstand the harsh conditions of the desert. And yet, there's something haunting about their isolation, a feeling that these buildings were not just homes, but repositories of stories that are now lost to time. These cliff dwellings, like the famous Chaco Canyon and Bandelier National Monument, stand as testaments to a highly organized society, one that knew how to master the natural world around them. But as much as these sites show us about the technical and cultural achievements of the ancestral Puebloans, they also raise questions about their mysterious disappearance. The ancestral Puebloans' settlements were among the most advanced in pre-Columbian North America. In the Chaco Canyon, one of their most important centers, we find evidence of an intricate network of roads that connected vast distances. The great houses, massive multi-story structures, served as both residential areas and ceremonial centers. Some of these great houses contain thousands of rooms, suggesting a level of communal living and social organization that few other cultures in the Americas could rival at the time. But even more striking is the precision of their architecture. Many of the structures in Chaco Canyon are aligned with celestial events, particularly the sun and the moon, suggesting that the ancestral Puebloans may have had advanced knowledge of astronomy. The Pueblo Bonito, the largest great house in Chaco, contains rooms whose alignments seem to correspond with solstices and lunar cycles, indicating that the people here had a deep understanding of the movements of the stars and the passage of time. However, despite the grandeur and sophistication of Chaco Canyon, there is a sense of impermanence. Why did such a remarkable place, so full of life and knowledge, eventually fall into ruin? It wasn't just Chaco Canyon. Other ancestral Puebloan centers, like those at Mesa Verde, Canyon de Chelly, and Hovenweep, eventually saw similar declines. Was it a slow process of environmental change, a societal collapse, or was something more mysterious at play? One prevailing theory suggests that climate change may have been a major factor. The ancestral Puebloans lived in a region where water was scarce, and evidence from tree rings and soil cores suggests that the climate during their peak was more favorable than it became in the centuries that followed, a period of severe drought which began around 1150 CE could have led to crop failures and food shortages, pushing the people to abandon their settlements. But the collapse was not a simple case of a group of people leaving due to bad weather. The evidence shows that the ancestral Puebloans had already begun to adapt, developing irrigation systems and new farming techniques. So why then did they leave their homes, some of which were deeply embedded in the cliffs themselves, clearly built for protection? Another theory suggests that social or political factors played a role. Archaeologists have found evidence of widespread violence at some ancestral Puebloan sites, including Chaco Canyon. Could internal conflict or warfare have driven them to abandon their settlements? The archaeological record shows that some communities may have been raided, their buildings burned and destroyed. Was there a breakdown in social cohesion, leading to the collapse of these once thriving centers? Even more perplexing is the question of why they chose to leave the cliff dwellings and the urban centers in the first place. After centuries of living in these fortified locations, many of the ancestral Puebloans abandoned their cliffside homes and dispersed to more isolated areas. In some places, such as the Xusca Mountains, evidence of early settlements is found, smaller, more scattered communities that appear to have been an attempt to return to simpler, more self-sufficient ways of life. Was it purely a matter of survival? Or was there a deeper, more spiritual shift at play? Did the people of the ancestral Puebloan culture undergo a cultural transformation, leaving behind their impressive cities in favor of a more dispersed way of life? The spiritual beliefs of the ancestral Puebloans, while still shrouded in mystery, offer another layer to the puzzle. The ancestral Puebloans are often associated with their intricate pottery, kivas, and ceremonial artifacts, many of which depict animal motifs and symbols linked to the natural world. Could these symbols and their deeply spiritual rituals have been connected to their decision to abandon their cities? Was there a belief that their spiritual connection to the land had been disrupted, or that a change in their relationship to the natural world was required? Petroglyphs and pictographs scattered throughout the Southwest provide glimpses into the belief systems of the ancestral Puebloans. Some images suggest connections to celestial events, animals, and supernatural beings. Yet we can only speculate about what these symbols meant to the people who created them. Were they religious icons, representations of personal or communal identity, or something more? And could the migration away from the cliff dwellings have had spiritual or ritual significance, a deliberate retreat rather than a collapse? Today, the descendants of the ancestral Puebloans, known as the Pueblo peoples, continue to live in the American Southwest, preserving many aspects of their culture. But the ancient mystery of the ancestral Puebloans remains unsolved. Did they leave simply because of environmental hardship, or were there deeper, unseen forces at play? Was it a cultural transformation, a spiritual awakening, or a mixture of all of these that caused their shift from the grand stone cities to more isolated and simpler ways of life? As we stand before the ruins of these once great cities, cliff dwellings like those in Mesa Verde, the sprawling great houses of Chaco Canyon, and the quiet remnants of other ancestral Puebloan sites, we are reminded that not all stories are meant to be told in full. Some secrets remain hidden, waiting to be uncovered. What could we still learn from the silent stone walls, the weathered artifacts, and the ancient landscapes left behind by this fascinating civilization? The answers, perhaps, lie just out of reach. And as we continue to search for understanding, the questions linger. What drove the ancestral Puebloans to leave their cities? And what knowledge did they carry with them? As we move from the remote cliff dwellings of the ancestral Puebloans, we turn our gaze across the ancient Mediterranean world, a realm of towering cities and vast empires where one of the most enigmatic forces of the ancient world still eludes full understanding. These were the Sea Peoples, a group of mysterious raiders whose impact on the civilizations of the Late Bronze Age was profound, yet whose origins and identity remain a subject of intense debate among historians. Imagine standing on the jagged cliffs of Uppsala, a coastal site on the shores of what is now modern-day Turkey, overlooking the deep blue waters of the Aegean Sea. In the distance, the remnants of ancient cities, Troy, Mycenae, Hittite Hattusa, rise from the land, silent witnesses to the violent disruptions that marked the close of the Bronze Age. The Sea Peoples, who emerged from the sea like a storm, left an indelible mark on the region, but their true nature remains shrouded in mystery. Who were the Sea Peoples? What motivated them to ravage the great powers of the ancient world, the Egyptians, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, at the height of their prosperity? Their name, as we know it, comes from ancient Egyptian records, where they are described as a confederation of maritime raiders whose attacks sent shockwaves through the ancient world in the 13th and 12th centuries BCE. The Medinet Habu, the mortuary temple of Ramses III in Egypt, is one of the few places where the Sea Peoples are mentioned with any degree of detail. The reliefs on the walls show fierce warriors, their faces partially obscured by helmets, wielding weapons of destruction as they descend upon Egyptian cities. Yet, for all the vivid depictions of their raids, the question remains, who were these people? The Egyptian records provide a glimpse of their actions, but little about their origins, and the names of the tribes, like the Peliset, Jeker, and Shurden, are almost as mysterious as the raiders themselves. Were they seafaring invaders from distant lands, or were they displaced populations from within the very territories they attacked? The idea that the Sea Peoples were a series of migrant groups fleeing from collapse in their own homelands is one theory that has gained traction. Evidence suggests that the Bronze Age collapse, a period of widespread upheaval in the eastern Mediterranean, triggered a series of mass migrations and conflicts. Could the Sea Peoples have been refugees, driven from their homes by climate change, famine, or the disruption of trade routes? In fact, archaeological evidence from several regions points to signs of climate instability, including shifts in weather patterns that could have led to crop failures and resource shortages. For those without the means to survive, the Mediterranean's vast seas may have seemed like a route to something better, or at least a way to escape destruction. But then there's the question of why these migrations seem to coalesce into such organized and violent raiding parties. The Sea Peoples didn't just migrate, they attacked. Ancient Egypt, one of the most powerful kingdoms of the time, recorded a significant conflict with the Sea Peoples around 1178 BCE during the reign of Ramses III. The Egyptian king's victory over the invaders is one of the few definitive pieces of evidence we have regarding the Sea Peoples' activities. But the Egyptian victory did not mark the end of their menace. By the time the Sea Peoples' raids reached their peak, the Hittite Empire had already crumbled, The Mycenaean cities of Greece had been destroyed, and trade networks across the region had collapsed. Could the Sea Peoples have been responsible for the widespread destruction of these civilizations? Or was their rise merely a symptom of broader systemic changes? Some scholars believe that the Sea Peoples were a contributing factor to the Bronze Age collapse, but it's difficult to say whether they were the primary cause or merely one of many elements in a complex process. Were they a force of nature, a whirlwind of destruction that swept through a region already on the brink of collapse? Or was there something deeper at play, some latent cause that pushed these once powerful civilizations to unravel so rapidly? The role of the Mycenaeans in this collapse is particularly intriguing. Their culture, famous for its palatial structures and intricate art, seems to have collapsed in tandem with the Sea Peoples' rise. Mycenaean cities, like those at Tiryns and Pylos, were fortified with massive walls, designed to withstand siege and invasion. Yet, by the end of the 13th century, BCE, these cities were abandoned, and their palaces were burned. Could the Sea Peoples have played a role in this destruction? Evidence of burnt layers in the archaeological record supports the theory that these cities were attacked, perhaps by the very Sea Peoples, whose identity continues to elude us. Another theory posits that the Sea Peoples were a coalition of displaced peoples rather than a single group, originating from several different regions. The names of the Sea Peoples mentioned in Egyptian inscriptions, Peliset, Checker, and Shurden, are associated with different parts of the Mediterranean, from the Aegean to Anatolia, and even as far as the Levant. This has led some scholars to suggest that the Sea Peoples might have been a confederation of displaced groups who came together to strike against the established powers of the Mediterranean world. Did they form a loose alliance based on necessity? Or was there some deeper, shared identity that united them? The fact that the Sea Peoples are not definitively identified in the historical record only adds to their mystery. Ancient texts provide us with fleeting glimpses of their raids, but these accounts rarely offer insight into the motivations, origins, or even the lasting consequences of their actions. The Peliset, one of the Sea Peoples' key tribes, is thought to have eventually settled along the coast of Philistine Gaza, becoming one of the foundational peoples of the Philistine culture. But how did they come to settle, and what kind of society did they establish once the dust settled from their raids? Even as archaeological evidence continues to emerge, it raises more questions than it answers. Did the Sea Peoples disappear into history, absorbed into the civilizations they once destroyed, or did they leave behind a lasting cultural legacy? What can their raids tell us about the larger dynamics of the Mediterranean world during a time of upheaval? As we stand on the threshold of understanding, we are left to contemplate the enduring mystery of the Sea Peoples. Were they a product of their time, a desperate, dislocated force driven by the collapse of civilizations, or did they represent something more, a harbinger of change in a world on the brink of transformation? And as we sift through the layers of ancient history, we must ask, what more remains to be uncovered about these shadowy figures from the deep? As we leave the turbulent shores of the Sea Peoples behind and journey through time, we arrive in the dense jungles of present-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, territory once dominated by the Maya civilization. In the southern lowlands, a region thick with overgrown vegetation and sweltering heat, the remnants of one of the most extraordinary cultures in the ancient world still rise above the treetops like a forgotten kingdom. Here, beneath the canopies of trees older than any modern civilization, lies a puzzle that has fascinated scholars and explorers for centuries. Imagine standing at the edge of Tikal, one of the most majestic Maya cities, its towering pyramids piercing the sky. The great plaza, flanked by massive temples and palaces, is bathed in the soft light of dawn. The jungle, alive with the calls of distant birds and the rustling of unseen creatures, seems to pulse with a quiet energy, as if the very air holds the whispers of a civilization long past. Towering pyramids like Temple 1 and Temple 2, once the centers of political and religious life, now lie silent, surrounded by the creeping fingers of nature. These monumental structures, which once hosted grand ceremonies, now serve as timeless witnesses to a civilization that reached its zenith, only to fade into mystery. The Maya, whose civilization flourished for nearly 2,000 years, were masters of art, science, and architecture. Their cities were filled with vast pyramids, intricate palaces, and grand plazas, all constructed with an astonishing understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and urban planning. They created complex writing systems, leaving behind thousands of glyphs that chronicled their history, politics, and myths. Their achievements in architecture alone would be impressive by modern standards. Each pyramid and temple was designed with celestial precision, aligning with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. But what happened to the Maya? What caused the fall of their once great cities in the southern lowlands, particularly during the Classic period, which ended abruptly around the 9th century CE? The mystery of their decline is one of the most enduring puzzles in ancient history. The ancient cities of the southern lowlands, such as Tikal, Calakmul, and Karakol, were thriving metropolises at the height of the Maya civilization. These cities were not isolated. They were part of a vast network of trade routes, cultural exchanges, and political alliances that spanned the entire region. The Maya built sophisticated infrastructure, including elevated roads known as Sakbiop, and intricate water management systems to channel rainwater and irrigate crops in a region that was often subject to seasonal droughts. Yet by the end of the 9th century, many of these cities began to decline. The once thriving metropolis of Tikal saw its population dwindle, and its grand pyramids fell into ruin. In the wake of this sudden collapse, many cities were abandoned, leaving behind only stone monuments and crumbling ruins. But what caused such a profound and rapid decline? Was it the result of internal conflict, environmental stress, or some other more enigmatic force? One theory points to the climate crisis that gripped the region during this period. Evidence from paleoclimatic data, including tree ring records, suggests that the southern lowlands experienced several severe droughts in the centuries leading up to the Maya collapse. Could this have been the breaking point for a society that was so intricately tied to the land? The Maya depended heavily on agriculture, particularly the cultivation of maize, which required a reliable water supply. If the rains failed during key growing seasons, it could have led to widespread food shortages, causing social unrest and destabilizing once flourishing cities. Some scholars speculate that these droughts may have contributed to the Maya's eventual migration to more northern areas, where conditions were more favorable. But climate change alone may not account for the full picture. Archaeological evidence also points to a more complex scenario. Warfare, too, may have played a significant role in the Maya collapse. The southern lowlands were a region of intense political rivalry, and numerous powerful city-states, including Tikal, Calakmul, and Palenque, vied for dominance. The Maya practiced ritual warfare, and it's believed that their conflicts were often waged for the capture of prisoners who could be sacrificed to the gods. However, the scale of conflict intensified in the centuries before the collapse, and some believe that the constant warfare weakened the region's ability to withstand the pressures of environmental degradation and resource scarcity. In the last years before their cities fell into ruin, many Maya rulers left behind inscriptions that speak of growing strife and instability. The once glorious cities, with their towering pyramids and grand palaces, became sites of ceremonial destruction as temples were torn down and statues defaced. Was this a sign of internal decay, a loss of faith in the gods and in the power of the rulers? Or was it the result of political upheaval, cities falling into anarchy as their leadership fractured under the weight of drought, famine, and warfare? And yet, for all the evidence of collapse, the story of the Maya civilization does not end there. While the southern lowlands were abandoned, the northern Maya cities, such as Chichen Itza, continued to thrive for centuries after the fall of the lowlands. By the 10th century, these cities had emerged as centers of power, their influence extending across the Yucatan Peninsula. It's as though the collapse was not a singular event, but part of a broader, more complex transformation. What did the shift to the northern cities represent? Was it a continuation of the civilization spirit, or was it something entirely new, a response to changing conditions in the southern regions? The Maya legacy, however, extends far beyond the rise and fall of cities. Their descendants, still living in the region today, continue to preserve their culture and traditions, maintaining a strong connection to the ancient world. Their language, ceremonies, and rituals are deeply rooted in the cosmology and practices of their ancestors, offering a living link to a civilization that remains an enigma in many ways. As we stand among the towering pyramids of Tikal, or gaze upon the remains of other Maya cities, the mystery of their decline continues to linger in the air, just as the whispers of ancient rulers once echoed across these same plazas. Was it simply a matter of environmental and political pressures, or did the Maya perhaps foresee something darker at play, a cosmic force or divine will that led them to abandon their cities? Was their collapse a consequence of their own doing, or was it an inevitable part of the ever-changing rhythms of human history? Even now, as we sift through the remnants of their civilization, stone monuments, glyphs, and monumental architecture, there are more questions than answers. What remains hidden beneath the layers of time? What secrets might still be waiting to emerge from the dense jungles of the southern lowlands, where the ancient stones lie undisturbed? The Maya left behind not only physical evidence, but a legacy of mystery, inviting us to wonder what might still be uncovered and what we have yet to understand. As we leave the dense jungles of the Maya and journey into the arid deserts of the Middle East, we encounter a civilization that, like a mirage, rises from the shifting sands, its grandeur hidden for centuries, awaiting rediscovery. The Nabateans, an ancient Arab people, built a culture that thrived in the harsh landscapes of what is now Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and parts of Syria. At the heart of their civilization lies the majestic city of Petra, a place whose very existence was long relegated to the pages of legend before being revealed to the modern world in the early 19th century. Imagine standing at the edge of Petra's Al-Sik, a narrow, winding gorge that leads into the heart of the city. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting golden rays across the towering sandstone cliffs, whose deep red and orange hues seem to shift as the light moves. As you make your way through the gorge, you are drawn forward by the soft echo of footsteps, the sound of your presence seeming to reverberate off the ancient stones. Suddenly, the passage opens up, and before you stands the Khazne, the treasury, a grand facade carved directly into the rock, its intricate details glowing in the fading light. The scale of the structure is awe-inspiring, and yet, as you gaze upon it, questions begin to form. Who were the Nabateans, and how did they build such a remarkable city in one of the most inhospitable regions of the ancient world? Why, after centuries of flourishing, did they seemingly vanish from the historical record, leaving behind only these enigmatic ruins? The Nabateans were not just masterful stone carvers and architects, they were also brilliant traders, controlling the key caravan routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with the Mediterranean world. For centuries, they held dominion over the lucrative trade in spices, incense, and silk, commodities that were in high demand throughout the Roman Empire and beyond. Petra, their capital, was a city that thrived at the crossroads of cultures, where the east met the west and the north met the south. The Nabateans built their wealth and power not through conquest but through commerce, expertly navigating the deserts and desert oases. Yet, despite their wealth and influence, the Nabateans remain somewhat of a mystery. Unlike other ancient civilizations, there are no extensive written records left behind by the Nabateans themselves. What we know about them comes primarily from the accounts of outsiders, Greek, Roman, and Jewish historians, and from the material remains they left behind. This scarcity of primary sources only deepens the intrigue surrounding their rise and fall. The architecture of Petra is perhaps the most enduring testament to Nabatean ingenuity. The city is a wonder of engineering, with over 800 structures carved directly into the rock, including tombs, temples, houses, and water channels. The Nabateans were also skilled engineers, creating an advanced water management system that allowed them to survive in one of the driest regions on Earth. They constructed intricate cisterns, aqueducts, and channels that captured and stored rainwater, enabling their city to flourish in a landscape that would otherwise have been inhospitable. The sophistication of these water systems speaks to a deep understanding of both engineering and the natural world. But how did the Nabateans achieve such mastery over their environment? Some scholars suggest that their knowledge was not simply a product of trial and error, but perhaps a legacy passed down from earlier, more ancient cultures. There are hints of this in the complex blend of Greek, Egyptian, and Persian architectural styles found in Petra, suggesting that the Nabateans were not isolated but part of a broader, interconnected world. Did their expertise in water management and construction come from a deep-seated cultural exchange with neighboring civilizations? Or did they develop their own innovations in response to the harsh conditions they faced? As we look deeper into the ruins of Petra, we're drawn to another question. Why did the Nabateans disappear from history? The city of Petra flourished for centuries, and yet, by the 2nd century CE, after a period of Roman domination, it began to decline. Some historians point to the Roman annexation of Nabatean lands as a turning point, arguing that the absorption of Petra into the Roman Empire led to the city's eventual fall. With Roman control came the decline of the Nabatean trade network, and over time, Petra's role as a central hub of commerce diminished. Yet this explanation alone does not fully account for the suddenness of the city's collapse. Others have suggested that environmental factors may have played a role. The region's fragile ecosystem, already strained by the demands of agriculture and trade, could have been further destabilized by changing climate patterns, resulting in a period of drought that would have disrupted agriculture and the water systems upon which Petra relied. Could such environmental shifts have played a part in the fall of a civilization that thrived on the delicate balance between human ingenuity and nature? There is also the possibility that internal political turmoil contributed to the decline. As with many ancient civilizations, the rise of powerful external forces, such as the Romans, often coincided with internal instability. The Nabateans may have faced challenges from within, as competing factions vied for power, weakening their ability to defend against external threats. The precise causes remain uncertain, and the suddenness with which Petra fell into relative obscurity adds to the enigma. Perhaps most intriguing of all is the possibility that there is still much about the Nabateans that we have yet to uncover. While Petra has been extensively studied, many other Nabatean cities and sites remain unexplored, hidden beneath the sands of time. Could there be undiscovered treasures, scrolls, or artifacts that could shed light on the Nabateans' rise, their sudden decline, or the culture that flourished in this ancient desert kingdom? In recent years, advances in technology such as LIDAR, light detection and ranging, have allowed archaeologists to map the ancient city and its surrounding areas with unprecedented detail, revealing new structures and networks previously hidden beneath the earth. What secrets might these new discoveries hold? Could they provide more answers about the fate of the Nabateans and their relationship with the powerful empires that surrounded them? And might we one day uncover the true story of their civilization, one that could change our understanding of this enigmatic people? As we stand in the shadow of Petra's weathered stone facades, gazing at the silent remnants of a once great city, we are reminded of the fragility of history. The Nabateans have left behind a legacy of remarkable ingenuity and beauty, but also a profound mystery that has yet to be fully unraveled. What lies hidden beneath the sands, waiting to be discovered? What more might we learn about a civilization that was shaped by the desert, but whose story remains lost to time? As we continue our journey through the ancient world, we leave behind the sun-scorched deserts of the Middle East and head toward the fertile plains of Eastern Europe, to a civilization whose name echoes like a whisper across time. The Cucuteni Tripilia culture, nestled between the modern borders of Ukraine, Romania, and Moldova, this ancient society thrived thousands of years ago, at the cusp of the Neolithic and Copper Ages. Yet, despite its significant influence on the prehistoric world, much about the Cucuteni Tripilians remains shrouded in mystery. Imagine standing on the edge of the Tiras River in modern-day Ukraine. The landscape is peaceful, with undulating hills and lush forests stretching out as far as the eye can see. The river, calm and slow-moving, winds its way through a valley that has seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Beneath this tranquil surface, however, lies a deep history. Thousands of years ago, this very landscape was home to a society that built not just villages, but sprawling, planned cities, some with populations that rivaled those of ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. At the heart of their cities were remarkable ceramic artifacts, elaborately decorated pottery, and massive homes, many of which have been uncovered through modern archaeology. But these discoveries, though fascinating, only begin to scratch the surface of the Cucuteni Tripilia culture's complexity. The mystery deepens when you consider their unique settlement patterns. The Cucuteni Tripilians are believed to have created some of the largest known prehistoric settlements in Europe, with cities containing up to 15,000 people at their peak. What is even more surprising is that these cities were often burned and abandoned after a few generations, only to be rebuilt in the same locations, sometimes in even larger and more complex configurations. One of the most striking aspects of their settlements is the presence of large circular dwellings. These structures, sometimes arranged in concentric rings, hint at a society that was organized, intentional, and possibly governed by complex social or religious principles. What could have driven such an elaborate, cyclical pattern of construction and destruction? Was it ritualistic, or was there a more pragmatic reason for their seemingly deliberate abandonment of flourishing communities? Could these patterns be a form of symbolic renewal, or were they the result of climate change, conflict, or resource depletion? As we explore the material culture left behind by the Cucuteni Tripilians, one cannot help but be struck by the sheer beauty and sophistication of their craftsmanship. The pottery, adorned with swirling geometric patterns, is unlike anything found in other contemporary societies. Some of these designs resemble motifs seen in cultures that existed thousands of miles away, leading some to speculate about possible trade or cultural exchange between distant peoples. Could the Cucuteni Tripilians have been connected to other early civilizations in ways we have yet to fully understand? Equally perplexing are the figurines that have been unearthed across their settlements. These small, often abstract sculptures made of clay depict human figures with exaggerated features, such as large breasts or prominent bellies, suggesting a symbolic connection to fertility or the divine. What role did these figurines play in Cucuteni Tripilia society? Were they offerings to the gods, talismans for good fortune, or something more? Some researchers have suggested they may have been used in rituals that celebrated the cyclical nature of life and death, hinting at a deeply spiritual or religious worldview. Others propose that they may have been representations of the female principle central to a matriarchal society, although this remains speculative at best. While the Cucuteni Tripilia culture's material remains provide us with glimpses of their lives, there are still many questions left unanswered. The writing system they may have used, if it existed at all, remains elusive. Though some symbols have been found on pottery and other objects, they have yet to be definitively deciphered. Did the Cucuteni Tripilians possess a written language, or were these symbols merely decorative? If they did have a writing system, what knowledge or stories did they record? Could it hold the key to understanding their complex societal structure and eventual decline? One of the most enduring mysteries surrounding the Cucuteni Tripilians is their sudden disappearance. Around 3000 BCE, after thriving for centuries, their civilization began to decline. Archaeologists are still unsure what caused their collapse. Some believe that environmental factors such as climate change or soil exhaustion may have played a role, as the fertility of the land would have been crucial to sustaining their agriculture-based economy. Others propose that the collapse was due to invasions from neighboring Skiu cultures, as the Cucuteni Tripilians were in close contact with other peoples in the region. Still, no definitive cause has been identified, and their disappearance from the historical record remains one of the great mysteries of ancient Europe. What makes the Cucuteni Tripilia culture even more intriguing is the fact that they seem to have been far more advanced than other contemporary societies in certain ways, yet their achievements are often overlooked in favor of the more well-known civilizations of the ancient world. Why is it that a people who created cities of such complexity and artistry have largely faded from our collective memory? Were their achievements simply lost to time? Or was there something about their culture that was deliberately erased, perhaps even forgotten by those who followed them? Some have suggested that the Cucuteni Trypillians may have left behind more than just physical remnants of their civilization. Could their knowledge passed down through generations have influenced the development of other cultures in the ancient world? Did their innovative use of ceramics, their advanced understanding of agriculture, and their complex social structures shape the course of history in ways we have yet to understand? As we reflect on the legacy of the Cucuteni Trypillians, we are reminded of how much we still have to learn about this fascinating civilization. The artifacts they left behind, their pottery, figurines, and architectural remains, offer tantalizing glimpses into their lives. Yet the full story remains incomplete. What remains buried beneath the soil, waiting to be uncovered? What secrets might still be hidden in the ruins of their cities, waiting to reveal their truths to those who are willing to listen? The Cucuteni Trypillia culture may be gone, but their story is far from finished. And as we continue to piece together the fragments of their civilization, we are left to wonder how much of their history is still waiting to be discovered. As we journey deeper into the crossroads of ancient civilizations, we come to a land that, for centuries, thrived in the shadows of the great empires of the East and West. The Sogdians, once the heart of an ancient civilization, have left behind a legacy that remains as enigmatic as it is influential. Nestled between the towering mountains of Central Asia, this civilization flourished for over 1,000 years, from around 600 BCE to the early centuries of the Common Era. And yet, despite their central role in the history of trade and culture, much about the Sogdians remains shrouded in mystery. Imagine standing in the city of Samarkand during its prime, in the bustling heart of Sogdiana. The air is thick with the scent of spices, silk, and incense, carried by the trade winds along the Silk Road. This is no ordinary city, but a gateway between the civilizations of the East, the Chinese Empire, the Indian subcontinent, and the great empires of the West, such as Rome and Persia. The streets are a patchwork of caravans from every corner of the known world, Chinese merchants with their fine silk, Persian traders offering glassware and perfumes, and Roman soldiers bearing goods from the Mediterranean. Above it all, the towering minarets and majestic palaces reflect the wealth and diversity of this crossroads of cultures. But despite the Sogdians' prominence as traders, diplomats, and artisans, the mystery lies in how little we truly know about them. Few records have survived, and much of what we do know comes from foreign sources. Yet what is clear is that the Sogdians were far more than mere intermediaries. They were the lifeblood of trade across the Silk Road, connecting cultures, languages, and religions. Their language was spoken from the Mediterranean to China, and their art, particularly their distinctive murals and coinage, tell a story of a people who absorbed and transformed the cultures around them, leaving a cultural fingerprint that can still be traced today. The Sogdian language itself is one of the few remnants of this civilization, preserved in manuscripts and inscriptions scattered across Central Asia. This ancient language, written in an alphabet derived from Aramaic, reflects the fusion of cultures the Sogdians embraced. Yet, it is not just the words they left behind that intrigue historians. It is what those words convey. The Sogdians were deeply cosmopolitan, incorporating elements of Persian, Indian, and Greek thought and art into their own. Through their trade routes, they spread Buddhism and Zoroastrianism across Central Asia, and perhaps even influenced the early spread of Islam centuries later. But how much of this was driven by the Sogdians themselves, and how much was influenced by the empires around them? One of the most captivating aspects of the Sogdians was their artistic achievements. Mural paintings found in ancient Sogdian tombs, such as those in Penjikent in modern-day Tajikistan, offer a vivid glimpse into their culture. These paintings depict not only scenes of daily life, but also fantastical worlds, with gods, mythical creatures, and merchants traveling to distant lands. The artwork is imbued with a cosmopolitan flair, blending elements of Persian, Greek, Indian, and Chinese styles, creating a visual language that transcended borders. What were these murals meant to convey? Were they simply decorative, or did they hold deeper meaning? Perhaps serving as a way to record the Sogdians' interactions with different cultures, or as a form of spiritual storytelling, detailing the sacred and the everyday. In addition to their art, the Sogdians were renowned as skilled metalworkers and coin makers. Their coins, often depicting the faces of Sogdian kings alongside foreign deities or rulers, offer a unique insight into their perception of power, culture, and religion. Some coins even feature Greek gods, a testament to the long-lasting influence of Alexander the Great's campaigns in the region. These coins were more than just currency. They were instruments of influence, tools through which the Sogdians asserted their place in the interconnected world of the Silk Road. But why did they so readily incorporate foreign elements into their coinage? Was this an attempt to align themselves with powerful neighbors, or did it reflect the Sogdians' own fluid identity, one that drew from many sources? The true mystery, however, lies in the Sogdian decline. By the 8th century CE, their cities began to fade into obscurity, and their culture slowly vanished from the historical record. Some scholars point to the rise of the Arab Caliphate, which swept through the region in the 7th and 8th centuries, and the subsequent Islamic conquest of Central Asia. With the fall of the Sogdian cities, much of their unique culture was absorbed or destroyed by the forces of Islam, and the Sogdian language ceased to be spoken. But was it really the Arab invasions that caused the end of the Sogdians? Or were there other factors at play? Some suggest that environmental changes, such as drought or shifted trade routes, may have contributed to the collapse of their once thriving cities. Others speculate that internal strife, perhaps the fragmentation of their once unified empire, played a role in their eventual demise. What role did the Sogdians play in the world around them in their final years? Were they the architects of their own fall, or did external forces act upon them, pushing them into the annals of history? The fall of the Sogdians leaves us with more questions than answers. Their cities, now reduced to ruins, still whisper their secrets to those who are willing to listen. In the desert, sands, and along the Silk Road, the traces of their existence remain. A gilded tomb, a fragment of pottery, an inscribed coin. But even with the archaeological evidence, the true nature of the Sogdians remains elusive. Was their civilization truly absorbed into the great empires that followed? Or did they leave behind a deeper legacy, one that may have influenced the cultures around them in ways we have yet to uncover? In the grand tapestry of ancient civilizations, the Sogdians stand as both a beacon of cultural exchange and a riddle wrapped in time. As we look back at their rise and fall, we are left with a singular question. How much of the Sogdians' influence remains hidden in the artifacts and stories of the civilizations they once connected? What secrets have yet to be uncovered in the vast expanse of the Silk Road? And how might the lost world of the Sogdians continue to shape our understanding of ancient history? As we move forward through the labyrinth of ancient civilizations, we arrive at a place that, for centuries, stood at the crossroads of Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Indian Ocean. The Aksumite Empire, though often overshadowed by the grand empires of Rome, Persia, and China, was a power unto itself, a civilization that not only commanded a vast territory, but also controlled trade routes that spanned continents. Yet, despite its prominence, the Aksumites remained shrouded in mystery. What drove their extraordinary rise and what caused their eventual fall? Picture the city of Aksum, the empire's heart, nestled in the highlands of present-day Ethiopia, bathed in the glow of the Horn of Africa's sunlight. Surrounded by jagged mountains and fertile valleys, Aksum was a thriving metropolis, a center of commerce, religion, and culture. The skyline was dominated by towering obelisks, intricately carved from single blocks of granite. These structures, some rising over 20 meters, still stand today, bearing silent witness to an empire that once rivaled Rome in both wealth and sophistication. The obelisks, with their cryptic inscriptions and mysterious origins, are just the beginning of the enigma that is Aksum. The Aksumite Empire flourished from around the 4th century BCE to the 7th century CE, at a time when the Roman Empire was reaching the height of its power. But while the Romans were building their colosseums and roads, the Aksumites were laying the foundations of an empire that controlled the trade of gold, ivory, spices, and even exotic animals, goods that traversed the Red Sea and beyond. Aksum became the gateway between the Mediterranean world and the far-reaching kingdoms of India, Persia, and Arabia. The empire's wealth, drawn from its control over these vast trade networks, is still evident in the ruins of the city, the stelae fields, the ancient palace, and the remains of a great port that connected Aksum to the bustling world beyond. But the Aksumite Empire's importance wasn't solely defined by its wealth. It was an empire of profound religious significance as well. In the 4th century CE, the Aksumites became one of the first empires in the world to officially adopt Christianity, making it the state religion. This momentous shift in faith was attributed to King Ezana, whose conversion to Christianity marked a key turning point in Aksum's history. The question arises, why Christianity, and why so early? Did it come as a result of diplomatic exchanges with the Roman Empire? Or was it driven by deeper spiritual convictions within Aksum itself? And what of the Aksumites' pre-Christian beliefs? Evidence of ancient temples, inscriptions, and rituals suggest a complex spiritual tradition that may have fused local African deities with the foreign influences that entered through trade routes. The full extent of this religious transition, how it shaped Aksumite society, remains an open question. The story of the Aksumite decline, like its rise, is shrouded in mystery. By the 7th century, the once mighty empire began to unravel, fading into the mists of time. While some historians point to the Arab invasions, which severed the Aksumites' vital trade routes, others suggest environmental factors, drought, soil depletion, and deforestation played a role in the empire's collapse. Yet there is still much that is unexplained. The fact that the Aksumites continued to hold influence in the region for several centuries after the empire's political collapse suggests that there were other, more subtle forces at work. Perhaps the fall of Aksum was not a single event, but a gradual decline, marked by shifting alliances, evolving trade patterns, and the rise of new powers. Aksum's mysterious decline is not the only unresolved question. A fascinating, yet largely unexplained aspect of the Aksumite Empire is the legend of the Ark of the Covenant. According to Ethiopian tradition, the Ark, the sacred chest that housed the tablets of the 10 Commandments, was brought to Axum by the son of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. It is said to reside in the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Axum to this day, hidden away from the world. While the historical truth of this legend remains impossible to confirm, it has nonetheless become a central part of Ethiopia's national identity. Could there be more to this story than mere myth? Could the Axumites have truly possessed an artifact of such profound religious significance? And if so, what did the Ark represent to the people of Axum? Was it a symbol of divine favor, a tool of political legitimacy, or something even more enigmatic? As the centuries passed and Axum faded into history, its influence on the surrounding regions endured. Ethiopian Christianity, still alive today, traces its roots to the Aksumite Empire's conversion. The cultural legacy of the Aksumites also survives in the architecture and traditions of Ethiopia, including their iconic rock-hewn churches, which continue to draw the faithful and curious alike. Yet much of what made Axum great remains hidden beneath the surface. As though the land itself keeps its secrets close, there are still other mysteries that linger half-formed, waiting to be unearthed. The Aksumite script, for example, known as Ge'ez, is one of the oldest written languages in Africa, but its origins remain elusive. How did this script evolve, and what role did it play in the administration and religious practices of the empire? Could it hold the key to understanding the deeper aspects of Aksumite society, such as their political system, their relations with neighboring kingdoms, or their spiritual worldview? And then there are the Aksumite obelisks, those towering stone monuments that stand as silent sentinels to a once great empire. Though many have been taken by invaders over the centuries, several still stand in their original positions in Axum, but their exact purpose remains unclear. Were they simply markers of royal tombs, or did they serve a greater ceremonial or astronomical function? Some have even speculated that these obelisks may have held connections to ancient knowledge or astronomical alignments, suggesting that the Aksumites were not only powerful traders and rulers, but also keen observers of the stars and the cosmos. Could the obelisks be more than just monumental architecture? Could they have been part of a broader system of knowledge that the Aksumites understood, but which has since been lost to time? The Aksumite Empire's greatness and mysteries continue to captivate those who seek to unravel the secrets of this ancient civilization. And as we look back on their rise and fall, we are left with one pressing question. In the end, what was it that truly made Axum great? And what knowledge, perhaps forgotten by the world, still remains hidden beneath the sands of time? As we turn our gaze once more to the ancient world, we arrive at a civilization whose name echoes through history, yet whose true nature remains tantalizingly elusive: the Etruscans. Nestled in the rolling hills of what is now central Italy, this mysterious people forged a culture that both predated and influenced the rise of Rome. But while the Etruscans flourished, their origins and ultimate decline continue to stir debate among scholars and historians, leaving us with more questions than answers. Imagine standing in the heart of Etruria, an ancient region that stretches across modern-day Tuscany, Lazio, and Umbria, surrounded by rugged hills, verdant vineyards, and the scent of cypress trees in the air. The landscape is dotted with the remains of cities: Veii, Tarquinia, Civitteri, and Volterra, each once home to a thriving civilization. But what is striking about the ruins of these cities is not just their scale and grandeur, but their striking sense of mystery. Their tombs, adorned with elaborate frescoes and inscriptions, hint at a culture rich in ritual, belief, and complex social structures. Yet so much about the Etruscans remains beyond our grasp. The Etruscan civilization reached its peak between the 8th and 6th centuries BCE, at a time when Rome itself was still a fledgling settlement. The Etruscans built impressive cities, created advanced drainage systems, and pioneered artistic techniques that would influence Roman architecture and art for centuries to come. They were skilled traders, artisans, and metallurgists, known for their beautifully crafted jewelry, bronze statues, and intricate pottery. Their trade networks stretched from the Mediterranean to the Aegean, from Carthage to Greece and beyond. Yet, despite their achievements, much of the Etruscan language remains a mystery. Etruscan, the language spoken by this ancient people, has been described as one of the most enigmatic languages of the ancient world. It bears no close relation to any known Indo-European language, making it particularly difficult to decipher. Scholars have managed to translate a few short inscriptions, but much of the language remains locked in symbols that refuse to reveal their full meaning. How then did the Etruscans communicate, and what knowledge did their language hold? One of the most fascinating aspects of Etruscan culture is their religion, which was deeply intertwined with their view of the cosmos and the afterlife. Etruscan society was governed by a complex system of divination, seeking guidance from the gods through rituals that involved interpreting the flight patterns of birds, the entrails of sacrificed animals, and the reading of omens. Their religious practices were not just confined to temples. They were embedded in the very fabric of daily life. The Etruscans believed in an elaborate pantheon of gods whose favor was sought in matters both personal and political. But what did these beliefs truly mean? Could the Etruscans' devotion to the gods have been rooted in a deeper understanding of the forces of nature, or were they simply the product of ancient superstition? Perhaps the most iconic image of Etruscan culture is the elaborate tomb paintings that adorn the walls of their burial chambers. These frescoes, depicting feasts, musical performances, and scenes of the afterlife, offer a glimpse into the Etruscan worldview. What is particularly striking is the recurring theme of life after death, which appears central to Etruscan beliefs. The tombs, often filled with luxurious grave goods, suggest that the Etruscans viewed death not as an end, but as a transition to another realm. Could their tombs hold secrets that might shed light on their understanding of the afterlife? What can the positioning of the bodies, the objects placed with them, and the imagery on the walls tell us about the Etruscan conception of immortality? While the Etruscans were undeniably influential, they were also shrouded in mystery. One of the most persistent questions is, where did they come from? Ancient historians, such as the Greek historian Herodotus, offered various theories. Herodotus claimed that the Etruscans were originally from the ancient kingdom of Lydia in Asia Minor, a theory that has been widely accepted over the centuries. But is it possible that the Etruscans were truly foreign invaders, or did they develop organically in Italy, influenced by the surrounding cultures? Some scholars argue that the Etruscans' origins may never be fully understood, as their early history is lost to time. What's more, while the Etruscans were once a dominant power in Italy, their eventual decline in the 4th century BCE is just as enigmatic. How could a civilization so advanced, so wealthy, and so influential lose its hold on the region? Some point to the growing power of Rome, whose military might and political savvy ultimately absorbed Etruscan cities one by one. Others suggest that the Etruscans' own internal divisions, brought on by political infighting or economic collapse, played a role in their downfall. But could there have been other factors at play? Were the Etruscans perhaps undone by something more fundamental? A shift in their society's spiritual or philosophical beliefs? What is perhaps most intriguing, though, is that even in their decline, the Etruscans left an indelible mark on Rome. The Romans borrowed heavily from Etruscan culture, adopting their gods, their architecture, their religious practices, and even their alphabet. Yet, despite this cultural exchange, the Romans were quick to claim superiority over their Etruscan predecessors. Was this a simple case of conquest? Or did the Romans intentionally erase the Etruscans from their collective memory? Did they suppress the mysteries of the Etruscans because of what they represented? An ancient, enigmatic civilization that had held the key to knowledge that the Romans did not fully understand? As we contemplate the Etruscans' legacy, we are left with more questions than answers. Theirs was a civilization whose influence can still be felt in the art, religion, and architecture of Rome. Yet the heart of their culture remains hidden, obscured by time, language, and the erosion of memory. How much did the Etruscans truly understand about the world around them, and what did they leave behind for us to discover? As we peer into their tombs, examine their artifacts, and decipher their writings, we must wonder, what secrets still lie beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered? And what, if anything, will they reveal about one of the most mysterious and influential civilizations of the ancient world? In the heart of the Mississippi River Valley, just beyond the banks of the mighty river in what is now Illinois, lies a sprawling ancient metropolis that once rivaled the greatest civilizations of its time. Cahokia, the largest and most powerful city of the Mississippian culture, rose to prominence around 1050 CE and flourished for nearly 3 centuries until it mysteriously declined around the 14th century. Today, the ruins of this once thriving city, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, are a silent testament to the complex and advanced society that called this land home. But as much as we know about Cahokia, much of its story remains shrouded in mystery. The city's most striking feature is the Monk's Mound, an enormous earthwork structure that towers over the landscape. Rising nearly 100 feet, it is the largest pre-Columbian earthwork in North America. Its sheer size and scale are mind-boggling, particularly considering the methods used to build it. Thousands of laborers, over generations, hauling dirt and debris to create a structure that still stands as a monumental testament to the engineering skills of the Mississippians. From its summit, one could once gaze over the entire city, which at its peak may have housed as many as 20,000 people. But what was Monk's Mound used for? Scholars agree that it likely served a ceremonial or religious function, possibly as the center of power, with temples or the residence of a ruler at its peak. Yet the lack of definitive evidence leaves open the question of how this mound fit into the broader structure of Mississippian society. Did it symbolize the connection between the earthly and the divine? Was it a seat of political power, or perhaps both? Why was it constructed with such effort and precision? And what did its creators hope to achieve by building such a monument to the heavens? The city of Cahokia was organized around a series of large earthen mounds, each of which may have had its own particular function, from ceremonial spaces to elite burial sites. The city itself was built along a grid system, a layout that is both practical and purposeful, but also somewhat mysterious. Unlike many ancient cultures, the Mississippians left no written records to explain their city planning or their construction methods. What does this highly organized, almost cosmopolitan layout tell us about their society? Was Cahokia merely a trading hub, or was it a center of political, cultural, and spiritual influence? one that commanded power and resources from surrounding regions. One of the more puzzling aspects of the Mississippian culture is the evidence of a complex religious system with elaborate rituals and belief systems that appear to have influenced neighboring cultures. The woodhenge, a series of wooden posts arranged in a circular pattern, is thought to have been an astronomical observatory, tracking the movements of the sun and marking key points in the solar calendar. The very existence of such a structure raises profound questions about the sophistication of the Mississippians' understanding of the cosmos. Did the Mississippians have knowledge of celestial movements that was more advanced than we realize? Could they have used this knowledge for practical purposes, such as agricultural cycles? Or was there a deeper spiritual connection to the heavens that we have yet to fully comprehend? Intriguingly, the Mississippians appear to have had significant contact with distant cultures. Archaeological evidence points to trade networks that stretched across the eastern United States, and even as far as the Gulf Coast and the Great Lakes. Exquisite artifacts, such as copper ornaments, shell beads, and pottery, reveal a people who were connected to a vast web of commerce and cultural exchange. The Mississippians' ability to engage in long-distance trade suggests a level of organization and cooperation that would have been necessary for maintaining such far-reaching networks. But how did such a network operate? How were goods transported over long distances? And what role did Cahokia play in managing these relationships? Perhaps one of the most intriguing mysteries of Cahokia is its sudden and unexplained decline. By the early 14th century, the once thriving city began to unravel. Evidence of abandonment, warfare, and environmental degradation can be found in the archaeological record. What caused the collapse of a city that had reached such heights of power and influence? Was it simply a natural consequence of overpopulation, or was there a more complex confluence of factors at play? Some scholars have proposed that environmental changes, such as soil erosion, deforestation, or a shift in climate, may have contributed to the city's downfall. Could a society so closely tied to agriculture and the surrounding environment have suffered from resource depletion or crop failure? Other theories point to social unrest or internal conflict, suggesting that Cahokia's political structure may have been destabilized by factionalism or uprisings. Still, others suggest that the Mississippians' religious practices focused heavily on the sun and intertwined with ritual sacrifice and complex ceremonies may have led to internal divisions or a loss of faith in the system that once held the city together. Even more speculative theories have emerged over the years, with some suggesting that external forces, such as invasion from neighboring groups or even the sudden appearance of European diseases long before the arrival of Columbus, could have played a role in the downfall of the city. But without clear evidence, these remain theories, rather than concrete explanations. Despite these many potential explanations, the true cause of Cahokia's decline is still debated. What we do know is that by the time European settlers arrived in the Americas, Cahokia had been abandoned for centuries, its once great city reduced to ruins. And yet, even in ruin, Cahokia stands as a silent monument to the Mississippian culture, a culture that flourished in the shadow of the great rivers, a culture that built monumental cities, traded across vast distances, and observed the stars with an understanding that continues to elude us. As we reflect on this once thriving civilization, we are left with lingering questions. Was Cahokia the peak of a civilization that had mastered not only the arts of agriculture and construction, but also the delicate balance between spirituality and governance? What drove this sophisticated society to abandon the very city that had been the center of their world, and, perhaps most importantly, what knowledge, customs, or artifacts still lie hidden beneath the soil of this ancient city, waiting to be uncovered. The answers may still be out there, waiting to reveal more of the enigmatic story of the Mississippians and their mysterious rise and fall. Nestled in the stark, dry landscape of the Peruvian coastal desert near the banks of the Supe River lies the ancient heart of one of the world's oldest known civilizations, Norte Chico. Also known as the Corral Supe civilization, this enigmatic society thrived as early as 3000 BCE, making it one of the earliest urban centers in the Americas. What makes Norte Chico particularly fascinating is that, despite its significance, much about this civilization remains shrouded in mystery. The ruins of Corral, the largest site within the Norte Chico region, stand as silent witnesses to a once thriving civilization that developed in an environment often considered inhospitable to human settlement. Amid the harsh, arid plains, the people of Norte Chico built large, impressive structures, massive pyramidal platforms, sunken plazas, and expansive public squares. The scale and sophistication of the architecture hint at a society capable of organizing large, coordinated labor forces, but the absence of evidence of pottery or written language raises more questions than answers. What, then, were the driving forces behind the development of such an advanced society, and why did they leave behind no written record? As you stand in the heart of Corral, looking out at the sprawling site, the sheer scale of its construction is overwhelming. The largest pyramid, known as the Sacrificial Pyramid, rises almost 20 meters, towering over the remains of residential and ceremonial buildings. This pyramid, like others in Norte Chico, was constructed from massive stone blocks, all carefully placed without the use of mortar. The precision and care with which these structures were built suggest a high level of knowledge in both engineering and planning. Yet, there is no evidence to suggest that the Norte Chico people had access to the wheel or advanced metal tools. So, how did they accomplish such feats? What motivated them to create monumental structures without the more obvious technologies we associate with ancient civilizations? Another curious feature of the Norte Chico civilization is the absence of evidence for warfare or defensive structures. Unlike many other ancient civilizations, which were often marked by conflict and territorial expansion, Norte Chico's remains suggest a relatively peaceful society. There are no signs of fortifications, weapons, or signs of large-scale violence. Instead, the focus seems to have been on social and religious organization. Was this a society that valued cooperation over conquest? Could their relative isolation and peaceful existence have played a role in their development? Or were they simply a society that did not feel the need to build walls, believing their natural surroundings were protective enough? In the absence of written records, archaeologists have turned to other clues to uncover the nature of the Norte Chico civilization. One of the most significant discoveries is the quipu, a system of knotted strings used by the Andean cultures to record information. While the quipu is most famously associated with the Inca Empire, which came centuries later, it appears that the people of Norte Chico also employed this system, though its full function remains unknown. Some theorists have suggested that the quipu might have been used for administrative or accounting purposes, tracking resources or population numbers. Others have speculated that it could have served as a form of ritualistic communication, a way for the people to connect with the divine. What secrets might the quipu still hold? Could it be the key to unlocking deeper aspects of their society? Or will it remain an enigma for us to ponder? The Norte Chico civilization also stands out because of its apparent lack of evidence of agriculture on the scale typically associated with early urbanization. Unlike other ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians or Mesopotamians, who relied heavily on irrigation to sustain their cities, the people of Norte Chico seem to have developed a unique relationship with the environment. They grew cotton and cultivated squash, beans, and peppers. But what stands out is their use of the anchovy fish as a significant part of their diet. The abundance of fish remains in archaeological digs suggests that the people of Norte Chico may have relied heavily on the ocean and river systems, tapping into aquatic resources as a primary food source. Could the reliance on such a resource-rich environment have allowed the civilization to thrive in the harsh desert without the same need for intensive agriculture? Despite the seeming prosperity of the Norte Chico civilization, evidence suggests that they eventually began to decline around 1800 BCE, though the reasons for their collapse remain speculative. Was it the gradual exhaustion of resources, the shifting of river systems, or perhaps even climate change? The El Niño phenomenon, known for its destructive impact on the coastal regions, may have played a role in destabilizing an otherwise fragile ecological balance. The lack of warfare and internal violence suggests that it was not a social collapse that brought about the civilization's end. Could external factors, such as the harshness of the environment or natural disaster, have contributed to their disappearance? In recent years, archaeologists have also speculated that the Norte Chico people may have had an even greater cultural influence on later Andean civilizations than previously thought. While they left behind no written records, their remarkable achievements in architecture, urban planning, and religious rituals seem to have paved the way for later civilizations like the Nazca and the Inca. Could it be that this relatively small civilization was an unrecognized precursor to the more well-known Andean empires? What aspects of their culture were passed down to the generations that followed? As you stand amidst the ancient ruins of Caral, it's impossible not to feel the weight of history. The Norte Chico civilization, one of the earliest urban societies in the Americas, was capable of building monumental structures and developing complex social systems. Yet, so much about them remains a mystery. How did they live? What drove them to create such extraordinary works without leaving a written record? And what caused their sudden decline? The more we uncover about Norte Chico, the more we realize how much remains hidden, waiting to be discovered. What knowledge, practices, or stories were lost to time as buried beneath the sands of the desert or the remains of forgotten structures? Perhaps, like the mysteries of the Nazca lines or the unknown origins of the Maya, the secrets of the Norte Chico civilization will remain just out of reach, forever a tantalizing puzzle in the grand narrative of human history. And yet, the story of Caral and its people remains a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of one of the earliest urban civilizations in the Americas, a civilization whose mystery continues to echo across the centuries. As the sun rises over the highland valleys of the Andes, the landscape is bathed in a soft golden light that reveals the jagged contours of the mountains and the vast stretches of land below. Among these rugged peaks, remnants of ancient civilizations remain hidden, waiting to be uncovered. Among the most intriguing of these is the Wari culture, whose legacy, though enigmatic, echoes through time. The Wari civilization, which flourished between 500 CE and 1000 CE, left behind an extraordinary imprint on the Andean world, and its influence can still be seen today in the remnants of its cities, artifacts, and innovations. But the story of the Wari is intertwined with that of an earlier, lesser-known civilization, the Huarpa culture, a group whose role in shaping the rise of the Wari remains obscured by time. High up in the Ayacucho Valley, one of the Wari's most important centers, the ruins of the Wari city still stand as monumental testaments to their power and ingenuity. The city, with its tightly organized urban layout, includes massive stone walls and carefully planned streets that radiate outward like the spokes of a wheel, a design that may have influenced later Andean urban planning. The sheer scale of this city, once home to thousands of people, speaks to the Wari's advanced architectural skills and their ability to command resources. Yet there is something almost eerie about the ruins, as though they hold secrets that are still slipping through the cracks of history. While the Wari may have been the dominant power of their time, much of their rise can be traced back to the cultural bedrock laid by the Huarpa, whose presence in the region predates the Wari by several centuries. The Huarpa people lived in what is now the central highlands of Peru, and much of their legacy is hidden beneath the sediment of history. Archaeological evidence suggests they were an advanced society, skilled in agriculture, weaving, and pottery. Their settlements, though smaller in scale than the later Wari, exhibit a remarkable degree of organization. But what exactly did the Huarpa contribute to the Andean world? And why have they remained relatively obscure, their influence almost ghostly in the grand narrative of Andean civilizations? The Huarpa's most significant contribution lies in the intricate agricultural terraces they constructed, which were far ahead of their time. These terraces, meticulously built to adapt to the harsh mountainous environment, enabled the Huarpa to cultivate crops in otherwise inhospitable terrain. They developed advanced irrigation techniques that allowed them to manage water resources in an area prone to both droughts and floods. Could it be that the Wari inherited these sophisticated agricultural practices? And if so, did this give them the advantage they needed to expand their influence across the region? The Wari, who rose to power in the mid-first millennium CE, are often credited with creating the first imperial state in the Andes. But the question remains, how did such an empire arise, and what role did the Huarpa play in this transition from localized chiefdoms to a more centralized imperial structure? The Wari's architectural legacy suggests a highly hierarchical society where power was likely concentrated in the hands of the elite. Yet the mystery of their governance remains unsolved. What type of relationship did they have with the smaller, more decentralized Huarpa communities? And did the Wari absorb the Huarpa culture into their own, or did they supplant it entirely? One of the most striking features of the Wari culture was their sophisticated road networks, which stretched across the Andean mountains, linking various settlements and facilitating trade and communication. These roads, along with the Wari's fortifications and urban planning, hint at a civilization with both military and economic prowess. But how did they maintain such far-reaching control over such a rugged and diverse landscape? The Wari left behind evidence of massive public works, but also intricate ceremonial centers, suggesting that their power was not only political, but also religious. It's possible that the Wari used religious ideology as a tool for social cohesion, merging the roles of spiritual leader and ruler in a way that few other civilizations in the ancient world did. Could the Wari have absorbed the religious practices of the Huarpa, blending them with their own and transforming them into a symbol of imperial power? However, the nature of the relationship between the two cultures remains uncertain. While the Wari Empire undoubtedly expanded by incorporating neighboring regions, including that of the Huarpa, evidence of conflict between the two groups is sparse. This has led some scholars to speculate that the Wari might have forged a different type of imperial relationship, one based on diplomacy, trade, or even alliance, rather than outright conquest. Could the Wari have recognized the agricultural and technological achievements of the Huarpa and worked to incorporate them into their empire, not through force, but through cooperation? There are also other, more speculative theories that suggest the Wari culture could have been influenced by external forces. Some have suggested that the Wari, known for their distinct architectural and artistic styles, could have had contact with other ancient cultures of the Pacific or Mesoamerica. But how realistic is this? Could trade and cultural exchanges have connected these distant regions? Or is this simply an attempt to explain the Wari's advancements by attributing them to outside influences? Despite the clear marks left by the Wari, the abrupt collapse of their empire by the 10th century CE adds another layer of mystery. Unlike many other ancient civilizations that fell due to warfare or internal strife, the Wari seem to have collapsed under environmental pressures, possibly brought on by changing climate conditions or the overuse of resources. Was it the combination of these factors that led to the decline of the Wari? Or was it a more sudden event that disrupted their power? And what became of the Huarpa, the smaller culture that preceded them? Did they survive absorbing the remnants of the Wari Empire, or did they vanish, leaving only scattered traces of their influence? As the wind sweeps over the stone ruins of the Wari city, one can't help but wonder what might have been lost to history. How much of the story of the Huarpa remains untold, buried beneath centuries of change and decay? And what might still lie hidden in the archaeological sites that have yet to be uncovered, waiting for the right moment to reveal their secrets? The mysteries of the Huarpa and the Wari cultures remain intertwined, and though scholars continue to piece together their shared history, there is still much to learn. What was the true nature of their relationship? Was it one of conflict, cooperation, or something more complex? The answers, if they exist, are buried beneath the rubble of ancient cities, awaiting discovery. And perhaps, just as the highlands of the Andes hold their secrets in the wind-swept hills and mountain peaks, the story of these ancient cultures is waiting to be uncovered one piece at a time. At Etapa, high above the rugged terrain of the Argolid Peninsula, nestled between the jagged mountains of the Peloponnese, lies a site of ancient grandeur, the Mycenaean citadel of Mycenae. The massive stone walls, still standing after millennia, rise starkly against the horizon, offering a glimpse into a once mighty civilization that dominated the Greek world long before the rise of Athens and Sparta. The grandeur of Mycenae's architecture, the towering Lion Gate, the enormous Tholos tombs, and the remnants of vast palace complexes speaks to a society that knew how to command power, both through military might and sophisticated governance. But just as the stones of Mycenae stand resilient against time, so too do the mysteries surrounding the Mycenaeans. It's hard not to be struck by the sheer scale and complexity of Mycenae. The Lion Gate, with its massive stones and the iconic relief of two lions guarding the entrance, seems to challenge the centuries of silence that have settled over this place. The lions, their faces worn with time, stand frozen as though watching over a civilization long gone. How, you might wonder, could a culture that created such formidable fortifications and sophisticated artistry disappear so completely? And what stories are embedded in the very fabric of the stone structures? Stories that we may never fully understand? Mycenae, along with the other Mycenaean cities, such as Tiryns, Pylos, and Thebes, was part of a larger world, known for its rich material culture, military prowess, and powerful kings. The linear B script, a form of writing used by the Mycenaeans, has been deciphered, revealing a society concerned with trade, warfare, and religious practices. Inscriptions list everything from grain stores and offerings to the gods, to detailed records of who ruled and who fought. The Mycenaeans were undoubtedly a highly organized society, with centralized palaces managing the resources of their kingdoms. Yet, for all their achievements, something about the Mycenaeans seems elusive, as if they existed in a world we can partially see, but can never fully grasp. The grandeur of Mycenae, its monumental architecture, its advanced systems of administration, and its wealthy tombs suggests that this was a society with a deep sense of its own importance. Yet the strange Tholos tombs, also known as beehive tombs, pose a mystery of their own. These circular dome-shaped burial structures, some of which are enormous, were built to honor the elite of Mycenae. The treasury of Atreus, one of the largest and most impressive of these tombs, has an almost otherworldly quality to it. Its immense size and the precise engineering involved in its construction are awe-inspiring. But who exactly were the figures buried within these tombs, and why were they honored in such a grand manner? Was it simply a reflection of their political power, or was there something deeper at play, a connection to ritual or the divine that we have yet to fully understand? One of the most perplexing aspects of Mycenaean culture is the apparent sudden collapse of their civilization around 1200 BCE, a mysterious event that has puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. The cause of this collapse remains one of the most enduring mysteries of the ancient world. Was it a natural disaster, such as earthquakes, that brought down these mighty cities? Or was it a wave of invasion, perhaps from the Dorian tribes, that swept through the Aegean and brought the Mycenaean world to its knees? The evidence suggests a combination of factors, perhaps internal strife, the destabilizing effects of warfare, and environmental pressures, such as climate change or the depletion of resources. But is that the whole story? There are also speculative theories that the collapse was tied to the mysterious Sea Peoples, a term coined by Egyptian records to describe a group of seafaring invaders who raided coastal cities across the Mediterranean. While we have no concrete evidence linking the Sea Peoples to the Mycenaeans, some scholars have wondered if these enigmatic raiders were responsible for the destruction of Mycenae's once great palaces. Could the Mycenaeans have fallen victim to a mysterious coalition of seafaring marauders whose very identity remains a riddle? Even more intriguing is the possibility that the Mycenaeans' downfall was caused not by external forces, but by internal collapse. Could the Mycenaeans have brought about their own destruction? Was their rigid hierarchical system and their reliance on a centralized power structure vulnerable to internal conflict, famine, or even rebellion? Some have suggested that the Mycenaeans, with their focus on military conquest and centralized control, might have overextended themselves, leaving them susceptible to collapse once their supply lines or political structures began to unravel. Another mystery lies in the Mycenaean religion. While we know they worshipped a pantheon of gods, many of whom would later feature prominently in Greek mythology, the specifics of their religious practices remain unclear. The evidence from Mycenae's palaces and tombs suggests that religion played a central role in their daily lives, with elaborate rituals, offerings, and ceremonies dedicated to the gods. Yet, unlike the Greeks who followed in their footsteps, the Mycenaeans left no fully developed myths or coherent religious texts behind. Could their gods and rituals have been so different from what we know that they remain almost unknowable to us? Or perhaps, as with so much of their culture, much has been lost to time. As we explore Mycenae, it's hard not to feel the weight of these unanswered questions, lingering like the shadows that stretch across the site in the early morning light. Was the Greek mythological tradition, which would later feature heroes like Achilles, Odysseus, and Agamemnon, a reflection of real Mycenaean figures? Or was it an invention that grew out of the ruins of a long-lost world? Could Homer's epic tales be rooted in the forgotten stories of a civilization that once stood as the preeminent power in the Aegean? Or is there a deeper truth buried beneath the layers of myth for us to discover? The Mycenaeans were undeniably a civilization of remarkable achievement, their influence felt throughout the ancient world. Yet, the more we uncover about them, the more we realize that there is still so much we don't understand. The origins of their rise, the nature of their political and religious systems, the causes of their sudden decline, all of these remain tantalizing mysteries. As the wind stirs the ancient stones of Mycenae, it seems as though the site itself is guarding its secrets, unwilling to let the past fully be known. And perhaps, in the end, that is part of the allure of the Mycenaeans, a civilization that remains just beyond our reach, with mysteries that continue to echo through the millennia. What have we missed in our search for the truth? What fragments of their world are still hidden, waiting to reveal themselves to those who dare to look closer? The story of the Mycenaeans is far from finished. It is still unfolding piece by piece in the dust of the Aegean. In the heart of the vast Libyan desert, hidden beneath the golden sands, lies the ghostly remains of a once thriving civilization, the Garamantes. The desert here is unforgiving, stretching for miles with no sign of life, save for the occasional wind-blown dune. Yet, if you look closely, you'll find scattered remnants of something far more complex. A society that flourished in the harshest of climates. The Garamantes, an ancient people who once called this land home, have long since vanished, leaving behind only traces of their existence. But these traces are curious, enigmatic, fragments of a story that refuses to be fully told. It is as if the sands themselves have buried the truth, forcing us to look deeper to understand the legacy of a civilization that thrived in one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. The Garamantes lived in what is now southwestern Libya, a land that, in antiquity, was not quite as desolate as it appears today. Thousands of years ago, when the Sahara was not yet the unyielding sea of sand it is now, this region was dotted with lakes, fertile valleys, and grazing lands. It was here, in this ancient oasis, that the Garamantes carved out their empire, a society that stretched across much of the central Sahara, trading with far-flung cultures and building a network of settlements that spanned hundreds of miles. Their capital, the city of Garama, was a bustling hub, a place of commerce, culture, and innovation. At its peak, it was said to rival the cities of the Mediterranean. The Garamantes controlled key trade routes that connected the Mediterranean to sub-Saharan Africa, and their wealth flowed from the exchange of goods, ideas, and resources. But despite their influence, little is known about the people themselves. They left no written records, and much of what we know about them comes from the accounts of outsiders, Greek and Roman travelers who were both fascinated and fearful of the Garamantes' mysterious ways. The most striking feature of the Garamantes' civilization is perhaps their mastery of the desert. They were not nomads, but sedentary people who had found a way to live in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth. How did they manage this? The answer, it seems, lies in an advanced system of underground irrigation, a feat of engineering that, to this day, remains a subject of awe and speculation. Archaeologists have uncovered remnants of an intricate network of subterranean channels, or fogaras, that once transported water from deep beneath the desert's surface to the settlements above. These channels were painstakingly constructed, stretching for miles in some cases, allowing the Garamantes to cultivate crops in the otherwise barren desert. It is said that they grew grains, dates, and other staples, feeding not only themselves but also the animals that helped sustain their empire. Yet, as we look at these remains, a question lingers. How did the Garamantes come to possess such knowledge of underground hydrology in an age long before the modern science we know today? The fogaras, a remarkable feat of engineering, suggest that the Garamantes were not only skilled in water management, but may have had access to knowledge far beyond what we would expect for a civilization that lived in isolation. Some researchers have posited that the Garamantes might have had contact with other ancient cultures, perhaps the Egyptians, or even more distant peoples in the heart of Africa or the Near East. Could there have been a shared knowledge of subterranean technology that transcended the known trade routes of the time? And yet, for all their engineering marvels, the Garamantes did not leave behind the kind of monumental architecture that one might expect from a civilization of their scale. No great pyramids, no towering temples, just the remnants of their subterranean waterworks and the faint outlines of ancient cities. In fact, the ruins of Garama itself are startlingly humble, a collection of mud brick walls and crumbled structures overgrown by the relentless desert. But perhaps it is the very simplicity of their legacy that adds to the mystery. Did the Garamantes possess a more profound connection to their land and its secrets than we can imagine? Their society, it seems, was not built on grandiose monuments, but on its practical, sustainable technologies that allowed them to live in harmony with the environment. Was their culture then one of profound wisdom, a society that understood the balance of nature in ways we are only beginning to appreciate today? There are also whispers of something even more intriguing, tales of the Garamantes' military prowess. The Greeks and Romans spoke of a fierce people who fought fiercely to protect their territory. The Garamantes were known to have mastered chariot warfare, and they were formidable opponents on the battlefield. Some even suggest that they may have had advanced technologies at their disposal, possibly even a form of weaponry that was ahead of its time. But here, too, the historical record becomes murky. Some sources describe the Garamantes as a peaceful people, living in relative isolation, while others suggest they were ruthless warriors who controlled the desert with an iron fist. Were they protectors of the desert or conquerors of it? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. What remains undeniably fascinating is the mystery of their disappearance. By the 5th century A.D., the Garamantes seem to have vanished from history. Some believe that the relentless expansion of the desert finally overtook their civilization, causing the collapse of their cities and their agricultural system. Others suggest that the Garamantes may have been absorbed into neighboring cultures, their identity slowly fading away over time. But despite the passing of centuries, their story has not been forgotten. Whispers of the Garamantes persist in the stories told by the Bedouins and the occasional archaeological discovery that keeps their memory alive. Perhaps the most intriguing question of all is what we have yet to discover. For beneath the shifting sands of the Sahara, the Garamantes may still have secrets hidden in the earth. What else remains to be uncovered about their lost empire? What forgotten knowledge or relics are waiting to be found, buried deep in the desert, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? As we look back on the Garamantes, we are left with more questions than answers. Their civilization remains shrouded in mystery. Its achievements, its knowledge, and its eventual fall all continue to elude us. But in the quiet desolation of the Libyan desert, the whispers of the Garamantes remain, as if the sands themselves are holding on to the secrets of a civilization that once flourished in the heart of the Sahara. Deep in the tropical heart of modern-day Mexico, there exists a place where the past looms larger than the present, a place where the jungle swallows the ancient stones, and nature seems to keep the secrets of the past locked away beneath a canopy of green. This is the land of the Olmecs, a civilization whose name resonates with mystery and whose legacy continues to baffle historians, archaeologists, and even the most seasoned explorers. The Olmecs lived over 3,000 years ago, during a time when much of the world was still in its infancy. Their homeland, now known as the Gulf Coast of Mexico, is a region teeming with life. Dense rainforests, swamps, and rivers cutting through the land like veins of the earth itself. But it is here, in the heart of this lush wilderness, that the Olmecs left behind their most enduring legacy: colossal stone heads. The giant heads, some weighing as much as 40 tons and standing over 9 feet tall, emerge from the undergrowth like silent sentinels, their weathered faces staring into the distance, locked in eternal contemplation. The sheer scale and artistry of these stone monuments is enough to provoke awe. But what is even more astonishing is that these massive sculptures were carved using primitive tools, and they were transported, no one quite knows how, across the challenging terrain of the Olmec heartland. How did a people with limited technology manage such a feat? And why did they create these heads in the first place? These monumental stone heads are far from the only mystery the Olmecs have left behind. They also crafted smaller but equally enigmatic artifacts: intricate jade figurines, elaborate pottery, and a peculiar writing system that has yet to be fully deciphered. These remnants, carefully hidden beneath the layers of time and jungle, hint at a civilization that was highly sophisticated. Yet despite centuries of research, much of the Olmec culture remains veiled in shadows. One of the most compelling aspects of the Olmec's legacy is the question of their origins. Who were these people, and where did they come from? The Olmec's influence can be seen in the later civilizations of Mesoamerica, including the Maya and the Aztecs. Many of their symbols, deities, and artistic styles were adopted and adapted by cultures that followed them. Could the Olmecs have been the cultural forebears of the ancient civilizations of the Americas, shaping the entire trajectory of Mesoamerican history? Traditionally, historians have painted the Olmecs as a mysterious but indigenous people who evolved within the region over time. Yet there are theories that suggest something more unusual, that the Olmecs may not have been entirely native to the area at all. Some propose that the Olmecs might have had connections with distant cultures, perhaps even crossing the oceans to arrive in the Gulf Coast of Mexico. Could their knowledge of advanced techniques, their large-scale sculpture, and their intricate rituals have been influenced by outside civilizations? And if so, what might these connections tell us about ancient global interactions long before recorded history? Then there are the questions surrounding their religion. The Olmecs were known to have worshipped a pantheon of gods, many of whom were represented in their artwork. But what these gods actually represented, or how the Olmecs understood them, remains unclear. The most famous of these deities is the jaguar, an animal that appears repeatedly in Olmec art. The jaguar, with its power and mystique, was believed to hold great spiritual significance, but what did it truly symbolize? Was it an embodiment of the forces of nature? Or did it represent something far more complex, a link between the physical and the spiritual world? The Olmec's pantheon was rich and multifaceted, yet it remains largely inscrutable. It is not just their gods that invite curiosity, but their ritual practices as well. The Olmecs are thought to have conducted elaborate ceremonies, perhaps even bloodletting and human sacrifice, though evidence for this is still debated. What were the true nature of these rituals? And how did they relate to the Olmec's understanding of power and the divine? Some researchers believe that the Olmecs used these ceremonies to establish and maintain control over their society, while others suggest that they were more focused on cosmic or supernatural forces, attempting to channel the energies of the universe in their favor. Their cities, while not as large as those of later Mesoamerican civilizations, were impressive in their own right. The Olmecs built large ceremonial centers with platforms and pyramids, and the most well-known of these is La Venta. It is here, at La Venta, that some of the largest and most intricate Olmec heads were found, along with a series of other extraordinary artifacts. These ruins suggest a highly organized society, one with the capacity to mobilize resources and labor on a grand scale. Yet, little is known about the political structure of the Olmec society. Was it a centralized state, ruled by kings, or was it a more decentralized network of city-states? And, perhaps most intriguingly, what led to the eventual decline of their civilization? There is no definitive answer, but some scholars suggest that the Olmec collapse was caused by environmental changes, internal conflict, or a combination of both. One of the most fascinating and enduring questions about the Olmecs is their sudden disappearance. By around 400 BCE, their cities were abandoned, and the Olmecs themselves seem to have vanished from the historical record. Some speculate that the environmental changes, such as flooding and changes in the river systems, could have contributed to their downfall. Others suggest that the Olmecs may have been absorbed into the cultures that followed, leaving behind only traces of their legacy. But despite all the research and speculation, no one knows for certain what happened to the Olmecs or why they faded into obscurity. Today, the jungle continues to reclaim the land where the Olmecs once lived, their heads, their art, their civilization slowly being swallowed by the very nature that once nurtured them. But as researchers continue to uncover new discoveries, new heads, new artifacts, and even new ruins, the questions surrounding the Olmecs only grow more complex. Were they an isolated people, shaped by the forces of their environment? Or did they have contacts with other ancient civilizations far beyond their known territory? How much of their culture was preserved in the civilizations that followed them, and how much was lost forever in the passing of time? The Olmec civilization, with all its grandeur and its enigma, remains one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. As we stand in the shadow of their colossal heads, we are left to wonder what else lies hidden beneath the soil of Mesoamerica. What other secrets might the jungle still hold, waiting for the right moment to reveal the true story of the Olmecs?